Hello, hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, night, from wherever you're watching. Welcome to another MSI Insider live stream. Today, as you can already see on my desk, we have a lot to show.
Actually, you just walked in with a box. So we have
more
more than a lot to show.
Yeah, we have. I've got some here as well. It was too much to all fit on the table here.
Yeah. In the background says MSI B560 and H510 Motherboard, depending on how you chair.
Wait.
Yeah.
Problem
okay.
solved.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Last week we had an actual spelling mistake, but I just fixed that during the stream. I just put a T in between.
Yeah.
So Z590 we've had last month. We talked about a lot of motherboards. I've got some Z590 motherboards here to quickly show you later on as well. But the main topic, of course, B560 and H510. The more affordable models, of course, already prepared for the current generation, 10th generation Intel Core processors, but also for the future generation, the 11th generation Intel Core processors. But before we go into that, we have a very nice giveaway today. If you go to msi.com/2/insider, you will see a link to our giveaway, to our Gleam giveaway, where you can win a game code for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. In Gleam, you can perform different actions. The more actions you perform, the bigger chance you will have to win. And if you're a returning visitor, then make sure to claim your loyalty bonus for a slight increased chance to win one of these game codes.
Well, it works quite well. I saw in the last month, several people winning.
Yeah, we've got a couple of winners indeed,
yeah,
who won through the loyalty code. So make sure to claim it. If you if you're here for the second time and the second time participating in the giveaway, you can already claim a loyalty bonus. And if you're a returning visitor for a longer period of time, then you can get some extra points. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, our bot will also put the direct link to the Gleam giveaway in the chat once every 5 minutes.
Yes, it works now. I just got it working in YouTube, Twitch. So if you're on Facebook or Twitter or Periscope, please join us on YouTube.
If you have any questions in the meanwhile, make sure to drop them in chat. We can see all chats from different platforms, but of course, because of all the messages, unfortunately, we won't be able to answer all of them, but we'll try to pick out the most interesting ones. I already see a question, what's in that cardboard box? Yeah, you will see that later on. I see some question about a monitor when it is in Russia. Best to check with your local retailer. We don't know all the exact dates for every specific
Especially
region.
not worldwide, yeah.
No. So best to check with your local retailer.
Man, he's correct. We're not social distancing.
Well, actually we are.
On his phone, we're closer than 2 meters. Well,
no, but in real life, we're quite far apart.
We only have to be 1.5 meters, so
yeah,
that's probably a viewing angle issue on your phone.
And actually, Eric is around the corner, so it's all fine.
Yeah.
We just faked him in here.
So, let's start.
Yeah, Sufjan is asking, when will the giveaway winners be announced? Throughout the live stream, we will do several drawings. So you only have to participate once, and you will be automatically included in all drawings. So if you didn't win the first time, no need to do anything again, because you'll automatically be enrolled for the next drawing as well.
Yes. So let's first talk a little bit about CPU.
Yeah, let's go into the announcement that Intel made last month. And that's their new 11th gen Intel Core processor
When did we do our Z590 live stream? 13th?
Yeah, I think a little over 1 month ago.
Yeah, so the 13th of January, I believe, Wednesdays. Yeah, then we also talked about this. So nothing new. There is still an NDA on the CPU, meaning we cannot talk about when the CPU is available, when it will launch, when we can do benchmarks. But rest assured, when this date will be, we will be doing benchmarks.
Yes, today we also have a demo set up with the B560 motherboard, but this is still with a 10th generation Intel Core processor.
Yeah.
In this situation, it's
11th gen not allowed to show.
No.
Not yet.
But of course, later on, when we are allowed to show it, we'll definitely do so. And these motherboards are all out of the box ready for that 11th generation Intel Core processors.
Yeah.
But today we will use a 10th generation. But let's talk a little bit about that 11th generation that will be coming later. And according to Intel, it will be quite a step in IPC. So that's basically your single-threaded performance. will go up to 90% higher than the previous generation, so than the 10th generation Intel Core processors. Also, if you get a version, of course, with integrated graphics, it should be up to 50% faster than the current generation Intel Core processors. And Intel also put a lot of emphasis on deep learning in these CPUs.
No idea how that will work for me, deep learning.
You're not a very good learner?
No, but I mean, I'm a consumer, I'm a gamer, what's the benefit for me, this deep learning?
I think it all depends on the software makers, how they implement this.
Let's wait until this new 11th gen launches.
Indeed. But let's take a look at a specific model that Intel showed during CES. And that's the Core i9-11900K. So as the name already tells, Core i9, this is a very high-end model. Quite interesting to see is that it's unlike the current generation Core i9, which is a 10-core model. This is an 8-core model. It has 16 threads, so because of hyper-threading, of course, you can get more threads than cores. Frequencies up to 5.3 gigahertz. Faster memory compared to the previous generation, so 3200 megahertz. The current generation is on Core i9 is 2933, and for example the 10400 that we're running right now, the Core i5, by default is only 2666 memory speed. So quite a bump up there as well. Enhanced Ultra HD graphics with, of course, quick sync, but also AV1 decoding. Overclocking capabilities, because of course the 11900K is a K SKU, which means you can overclock with it. Up to 20 pci-express Gen 4 lanes, so that's also new compared to the previous generation. We've already seen pci-express Gen 4 on several AMD platforms, of course, but with the 11th generation it's also coming to Intel. And interesting here to mention is that this will also work on Z490 motherboards. So if you already have a Z490 motherboard and you're going to put in an 11th gen Intel Core processor, you can also use PCI-Express Gen 4. Further on the chipsets, later on we'll go into more detail.
MSI Z590, that's what we explained about 1 month ago during our Z590 live stream. There are a lot of different models and implementations of Z490.
It's not that every Z490 motherboard in the market can do PCI-Express Gen 4.
No.
But all MSI Z490 motherboards can do it. It depends a bit per model what you can do, of course, because some have SLI support, some don't. But all can support it on both the M.2 SSD and the graphics card. Chipsets we will talk about later on. We got more details about that, also some comparison to give you an idea what to pick if you're interested in this platform as well. So we already mentioned Z490, of course in the previous generation we also had B560 and H510. And this generation, the 500 series, it's all quite easy. H510 becomes H510, B560 becomes B560, and Z490 becomes Z590. In terms of what they can do, most of it is kind of similar. In the sense that the Z series is still your overclock chipset where you can overclock both your CPU and your memory. On H series you cannot overclock at all. And on B series, on B460 it was not possible to overclock yet. That's different on B560 because in B560 you can overclock your memory. So not your CPU, but you can overclock your memory. Yeah,
and that's a big step forward. So today we're also going to show you what kind of impact memory overclocking on B560 will have. We will show you several benchmarks and you will see a big performance difference in certain applications. So I think this is an interesting choice from Intel.
And you might think I'm not interested in overclocking, so I don't care about that. But the thing with memory is most memory kits have an XMP profile and it's just one mouse click and you're running at a higher frequency. Of course, if your modules can do that. But it's not as much of a hassle. It's extremely easy. But in the previous generation, you could not use that XMP on higher frequencies than your processor could natively support. So that's a big difference. Today, for example, we're going to show you the difference between 2666 megahertz, which is a default for the 10400. But today we're also running it at 3466, so 800 megahertz higher. than what you could do on B460.
Some questions in the chat. Somebody noticed that the notification is still Merry Christmas on Twitch.
Merry
Not
Christmas,
sure
everyone.
who did that.
So
thanks.
that's already for this year, right?
Yeah,
Merry Christmas.
yeah. Thanks for the heads up. Another person is asking, are these all Intel CPUs? Yes, today we're all talking about the new Intel platform.
Yeah.
The 11th gen Intel CPUs, but we're not so much, we're not allowed to talk about the CPUs, the 11th gen CPUs, because that NDA will be later and we'll do a live stream by that time. But we are going to talk about new platforms, and we already did Z590 on the what did I say, 13th of January? Yes,
Yeah, something like that.
And today we're going to talk specifically about B560 and H510.
So even though it's 500 series, can be a little bit confusing because right now AMD also has 500 series, of course. You got A520, B550 and X570. But for Intel, it's Z590, B560 and H510.
Yeah.
All of these are LGA 1200 socket motherboards.
Yeah, so one interesting point at the top, you see that B460 and H510 do not work with 11th gen CPU. So if you have an older motherboard like Z590, it works with 11th gen CPU, and if you have MSI, it works even with Gen 4, PCI-express Gen 4. But B460 and H510 Intel will not offer support for that, so this will not work. But with the 10th gen CPU, everything works fine, even on the new 500 series, but also on all the 400 series platforms.
Another interesting thing, we already mentioned PCI-express Gen 4. In a 400 series, that will, because you need that 11th gen CPU, will only work on the MSI C490 motherboards. But on 500 series, you get PCI-express Gen 4 on all chipsets. So even H510, but on H510, it's only for the graphics card, so not for your M.2 SSD. And we can see that, especially on SSDs, it's really interesting to have Gen 4. You do get that with B560 and Z590.
Yeah, but then again, Gen 4 comes at a premium price.
Yes, and in the price range of H510, then
it works two ways. First of all, the motherboard is more expensive because you need Gen 4 switches and PCB and a lot of things. We discussed that in previous live stream. And you also need a Gen 4 SSD, which is also more costly.
Yeah.
You get more performance, but at a certain price. So an H510 is really a budget solution. And this generation, you get Gen 4 for the CPU. Oh, sorry, for the GPU.
The graphics card, yeah.
But that's like 1 to 1.5%.
It differs a bit per situation, per graphics card, but don't expect like shocking performance differences. In the future, that might of course be different. As soon as we get even faster graphics cards, but also if you get, for example, the storage that can be accessed in a different way, then that might change. But at this point, there is no major performance increase when using PCI-express Gen 4 in your GPU.
Yeah, Mike, Thomas is asking on YouTube, is the socket, how much different is it?
It's different in the sense that you cannot use this with an older CPU than, for example, a 10th generation. The pin layout is slightly different. It also has more pins than the previous generation sockets.
And coolers still work?
The coolers still work.
So they're compatible?
Yes. They still use the same 4 mounting holes with the same distance as they did in many generations. So no changes there. But you cannot use, for example, a 9th generation CPU on an LGA 1200 motherboard. Yeah. Or you can also not use an LGA 1200 CPU on, for example, a 300 or 200 series motherboard.
Indeed. Let's continue with the specs. Also, a very interesting change with Intel made on the Z590 is 8 DMI lanes, which is basically the communication between the CPU and the PCH. And the PCH is the chipset, the platform communication hub. And this is only on Z590, the high-end platform available. So if you move on B560 or H510, you're still stuck with the 4 DMI lanes.
And also important to mention here is that even on Z590, because you can also use that with a 10th generation Intel Core CPU, then you only have 4 lanes available. Yeah. 4 DMI 3.0 lanes. So in this situation, if you would use it with the current generation, then it's 4 lanes, but with the future generation, 11th gen, then you'll get 8 lanes, but only on Z590.
Indeed. And when the 11th gen CPU launches, or when we are allowed to do benchmarks, we will also try to find out, try to prove if the 8 lanes offer any benefit. And this, of course, you can think about RAID performance, about USB performance, you know, a lot of communication, a lot of devices come together and need to go to the CPU. So, yeah, how much is this? These 4 lanes are how much are they a bottleneck? We will see.
Let's see a question from Kenzie. Can XMP work on H510? I believe it does, but of course only up to the frequency that your processor can natively support. So for example, today we're running Core i5-10400. That one natively supports DDR4 2666. So even if you enable XMP on an H510 motherboard, with this CPU, it will run up to a maximum of 2666. If you, for example, run a Core i7 or a Core i9, which would of course not be a logical combination with H510, but in theory it works, then it will run up to 2933 megahertz. So even if you're using XMP, you cannot go beyond the natively supported memory frequency on H510, which you can do on B560. So especially if you have faster memory modules, and they're not that much more expensive nowadays, like especially DDR4 3200 it's one of the cheapest options right now. Then it's definitely interesting to look at B560.
Question from Twitch, HP110 is his name, I hope I pronounced it correctly. What about the X series? So these are the Z, the H and the B chipsets. X is positioned higher. On short term, you don't expect anything from Intel on that. For sure, it's on the long-term roadmap, but yeah, you will have to wait.
He's talking about an X600 series though. So I assume he's calculating with AMD numbers, because currently we're on X570. But so that's a bit different than what Eric's talking about, because X series on Intel is high-end desktop platform.
Yeah, X299.
Yeah, on AMD, it's X series is basically the competitor of the Z series on Intel.
Yeah.
But of course, right now we cannot talk about any potential future.
Well,
AMD
X670, yeah, no comment.
Yeah.
I mean, actually the same like what I was saying about X.
Of course, in the future, AMD will have new chipsets, but what we even don't know what the exact name will be of future generations of AMD at this point.
Until they're confirmed.
Yeah, indeed.
Anything else you want to talk about this slide? I mean, a lot of numbers, a lot of small details.
Another interesting thing to mention is USB 20G, which is now integrated into the chipset. So we already had USB 20G on our previous generation, for example, on several Z490, but also B460 models. But we always had to do that with a separate USB controller from S-Media. And in this generation, that's not necessary anymore, because in B560 and Z590, it is integrated in the chipset, which also gives really good performance. We also tested with this, and it's fast.
Little drummer boy is saying vendors like MSI should use the same numbers for all kinds of CPUs. So Z590I for Intel and Z590A for AMD. Yeah, not going to happen. It's always difficult, and we're always working on newer generations, so we always have this internal discussion how we need to name our platforms. And I remember, I believe Asus in the past, they called their P6, do you remember? P6?
Yes.
Was Z80s? No, that was earlier. Anyway, they didn't mention a chipset in the name, but then it's very difficult to find, because you guys and we, everybody's looking for the for a certain chipset, and if you cannot find that in the marketing name, it's going to be very difficult.
Because usually you also search for that chipset, for example, in Google or whatever search engine you're using, and then it's way easier to find it if the chipset name is in the name of the product as well.
Yeah. So
and
that's
also, for example, because you mentioned, for example, Z590i, to know that it's Intel, but I We also use I, but then we use it for the form factor of the motherboard.
I think most vendors use this.
Yes, because if it's I from MSI side, basically, it doesn't mean it's Intel, but it means it's a mini ITX motherboard. And if you see M behind the chipset, it means it's micro ATX.
Yeah. Will B560 and H510 support 11th gen? Yes, they will do.
For sure.
Yeah. Like indicated on the diagram. Yes. Why USB of M flash so buggy? Probably you're using a USB 3 key or USB device, USB 2, no USB 3 device. So please try to find a USB 2 or maybe even USB 1 device because
yeah, some USB drives are a little bit trickier than others when flashing a BIOS.
Yeah, indeed.
So basically,
it's probably a compatibility issue.
Yeah, the older USB drives tend to work better.
Indeed.
So the faster and more modern USB drive you have, the more tricky it will be compatibility-wise.
Yes.
So just grab an old one. It doesn't have to be big. A BIOS file is not big.
No.
If it's a 2.0, even better.
And if that doesn't work, please contact your MSI support, your closest MSI support. They can help you.
But indeed, my first suggestion would also be try different
No,
USB
that was
flash
my first suggestion.
Yeah. I said would also be.
Oh,
so,
would also.
So
okay.
For a
Fair
difference,
enough.
I agree with you.
Never happens. Screenshot.
Usually I correct Eric, but here, I cannot deny that he's right.
So let's continue.
Yeah, let's first take a look at Z series that we talked about in the previous month. If you're interested in more details about these specific models, make sure to check out our previous live stream. You can, of course, still find this on YouTube. But let's take a quick look at the models we have in our different product segments. Just a quick explanation, our MEG series is our enthusiast series, so the most high-end motherboards. Then we have MPG series performance, then MEG series, which is our more value for money platform on the gaming side, and then on the other side we have our content creation series and our Pro series. So in our enthusiast segment, we've already shown the MEG Z590 Godlike and the MEG Z590 Ace. Today we will take a short look at the MEG Z590 Unifi models, both in ATX and a mini ITX form factor. We haven't touched on them in the previous live stream, so today we'll tell you a little bit more about them.
Yeah, there was a question about the Unifi X model, but in a couple of minutes we're going to talk more about that.
We'll give you more details about this. Then in our MPG series, we have our MPG Z590 Gaming Carbon Wi-Fi. Then we have the MPG Z590 Carbon EKX, and that one comes with a water block, a mono block from EK water blocks included in the box, and that will not only cool your CPU but also your VRM on your motherboard. It also looks really cool in my opinion, but that's only if you're using custom water cooling. So it's not an all-in-one solution. That's really if you're into custom water cooling, then I think that's a very appealing option. Then we have the MPG Z590 Gaming Force, the MPG Z590 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi, the MPG Z590 Gaming Plus.
Mike.
Yeah.
Andre is getting some food.
Oh, that's
yeah,
good.
just that you know.
Yeah, that's indeed a very important thing. Andre, enjoy your meal.
Yeah.
I hope it's good, and let us know what you're getting.
He's probably already into the kitchen.
And on micro ATX in the future, we will also have our MPG Z590M Gaming Edge Wi-Fi model.
Yeah, so most of the models we talked about on the 13th of January.
Yeah. Then we have our MEG series, our Arsenal series. There on Z590 we have two models, our MEG Z590 Tomahawk Wi-Fi and our MEG Z590 Torpedo. Today on B560 and H510 you will see way more models in the MEG series, of course, because it's a more affordable chipset than Z590. So definitely a lot more in that segment, and of course in the enthusiast series you will not see anything today because that's basically reserved for the higher end chipsets because it's enthusiast segment. Then on Pro series we have two models with the Z590 chipsets, Z590 Pro Wi-Fi and Z590-A Pro.
He's back. So Andre, what are you eating? Ich wieder da.
It's in German. How many German meals do we know?
Bratwurst.
Bratwurst is good.
Yeah.
Or currywurst even better.
I see some questions about Alder Lake and DDR5. Yes, Alder Lake is coming. Intel already showed this, announced this. We cannot talk about when it will come, but sooner or later will this come. So what sense does this platform make? Well, a lot of people are, I saw somebody in chat already, I'm still running 4th gen. So a lot of people are upgrading, and the current platform, or let's say the 500 series with combined or not combined with 11th gen, they offer a lot of new features. Well, maybe not a lot, but you know, it's a good step again into the right direction with USB 20 gig, with pci-express 4, memory overclocking on the Beep chipset. So if you're upgrading and you have 10th gen, no, this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a small step. But if you're coming from, like somebody said, the 4th gen, Mike, what do I have at home?
You have a 6th gen.
6th gen, okay. Yeah, I always forget.
6700K, I said.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, for me, you know, it would make sense to upgrade to something like this. And what do you have, Mike?
6600K, same generation, but even i5.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's also about time to upgrade.
Yes,
I noticed that in some games it becomes an issue.
Yeah, same here. I was playing Cyberpunk with a 3090. I took from the office. CPU was a bottleneck.
Yeah, I can take a 3090 from the office, but it doesn't really make sense because usually my 6600K is a bottleneck anyway.
Yes, Edwin, this is all supporting pci-express Gen 4.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Unifi, Mike.
Yeah. Let's take a look into this.
Yeah, because the previous live stream we didn't show you these boards yet, and the Unifi boards will also be what we call a second wave, so it's not directly available.
They'll be in the market later than the motherboards we, for example, showed you last month in our live stream.
Indeed, and this all has to do, of course, with Chinese New Year, which happened last week. So factories shut down. Now the factories are ramping up again, and this will be one of the boards for the coming, let's say, months. I don't want to say weeks because that's too soon.
Yeah, in the coming months, definitely. Yeah. So in the ATX form factor, we will have two different models, the MEG Z590 Unifi and the MEG Z590 Unifi X. And the main difference between those, well, basically the only difference between these two models is that the regular Unifi will have 4 DIMM slots and the Unifi X will have 2 DIMM slots. And to some people, 2 DIMM slots might sound like basically a lower spec motherboard, so maybe an inferior motherboard to the regular Unifi, but actually 2 DIMMs is very interesting for overclocking, for memory overclocking, because with these processors you get dual channel memory. So when using 2 DIMM slots, you have a dedicated memory channel per slot, which essentially allows you to overclock even higher. And these boards are really targeted at extreme overclocking. So really, if you want to break records in memory frequency, then a Unifi X is a really interesting model. Both of them come with a 90-phase VRM design with 90 amp power stages. So that's an extremely strong VRM design. And also even when extreme overclocking, for example, a Core i9, you won't get any issues with that VRM. It also offers both Intel 2.5 gigabit LAN and Intel Wi-Fi 6E. The difference is that it also supports 6 gigahertz band compared to regular Wi-Fi 6. It has 3 M.2 slots that support pci-express Gen 4 and a 4th slot that supports pci-express Gen 3. And all of them also come with M.2 Shield Frozr. And these motherboards actually have a really interesting layout because with an 11th gen CPU, as we just saw, you get 20 lanes, pci-express Gen 4 lanes from your CPU. That means that in theory you have your x16 on your graphics slot and your x4 on your M.2 slot. Then in total you have 20 lanes. But because graphics cards do not really benefit that much at this point from pci-express Gen 4, if you give 8 lanes on Gen 4 to the graphics card, you still have the same bandwidth.
8 lanes Gen 4 is actually...
Yeah, 8 lanes Gen 4. You still have the same bandwidth as 16 lanes Gen 3.
Yeah.
Then you will have 8 more lanes for M.2 SSDs. So that means you can get 3 M.2 SSDs with Gen 4 speeds, your graphics card with PCI-Express Gen 4 on 8 lanes, and you can switch it, so you can decide it yourself. Of course, if you want to have 16 lanes or on your GPU, that's fine as well, but then you have one Gen 4 M.2 SSD possibility. If you give 4 Gen 4, or if you give 8 Gen 4 lanes to your GPU, then you will have 12 lanes in total left for your M.2 SSDs. So that's 3 M.2 SSDs at full speed.
Yeah, so will be interesting when we get this board. This is also no picture, no photo, I should say. It's a render, 3D render. Basically, it means that we didn't have the board back in our HQ. So that's why we already told you it's in the coming months. One thing, Mike, I don't see RGB.
No.
Is this a slow board or what?
It's Unifi.
It's no RGB, what the hell?
Unifi is our pure black board, so no RGB on the motherboard itself. It doesn't mean it doesn't support RGB, because it has RGB headers, and you can connect third-party RGB components and steer them through your motherboard. But the motherboard itself is completely black and no RGB there.
Who wants this?
There are quite many people that are not into RGB.
My God.
So yeah, the Unifi series is actually really popular among people that are not into RGB, because
hashtag RGB haters.
indeed, because yeah, it still gives you great performance. Of course, you will lose a couple of FPS because it doesn't have RGB, and everyone knows that RGB will give you higher FPS.
Everyone knows that.
But yeah, some people really like the dark black aesthetics without the RGB lighting. And of course, this is completely personal. Some people really want to have RGB. We have several options for them as well. For example, our MEG Z590 Ace model offers RGB, but our Unifi doesn't.
Should we not create a Z590 Unifi Plus or something, or Max with RGB?
No.
Okay, okay.
The thing about Unifi is it's black, no RGB. If you want to have RGB, there are many options out there that do offer RGB.
Okay. Next one is your little baby, right?
Yes. And this is the MEG Z590I Unifi.
Yeah.
It's still a Unifi board, so
Shall
still
I first
no
do a
RGB.
giveaway? Because probably you talk for about half an hour about this model.
Yeah, probably. So this is a mini ITX model, and as returning visitors of this channel might already know, I really like mini ITX.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, at home I also use mini ITX. Once you go ITX, it's hard to go back to a bigger system. It's a bit like going to a mechanical keyboard or a high refresh rate monitor. It's really hard to go back to what you had before. But even though this is such a small motherboard, it's still extremely strong. It has a direct 8-phase VRM design with 90 amp power stages. So despite it's a really small motherboard, this can still easily run and overclock even a Core i9 CPU. No problem whatsoever. It also a really interesting feature is it offers dual Thunderbolt 4 ports on the motherboard itself. So that's, for example, a specification you will only find on our Godlike and Ace models, other than this one on Z590. So really cool feature. Also really interesting for content creators, for example. It also offers both Intel 2.5 gigabit LAN and Intel Wi-Fi 6E. And of course, because of the size, you cannot put, for example, 4 M.2 slots on here. But it still offers dual M.2 with a Gen 4 slot on the front and a Gen 3 slot on the back. And the slot on the front also offers M.2 Shield Frozr cooling.
Andre was eating pizza.
Ooh, what kind of pizza?
Well, wait.
Pizza is good.
He said it was good.
It's not really German though. Or maybe I had bratwurst pizza. That actually sounds pretty good. Should give it a try. So yeah, these are our Unifi models. You can of course expect to see more from these models in the coming months. Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to them. Of course, especially mini ITX because it's my baby basically. But also the ATX models, really cool features. And if you want to use several M.2 SSDs with Gen 4 performance, definitely check out the Unifi or Unifi X models.
No, there is no render for Unifi X, but basically it's...
Just, if you take a look at this render, just remove 2 slots.
It's not that simple, but yes.
But that's what it looks like, at least,
that's
from
what
the
it
outside.
looks like, yes.
So just picture this board with 2 memory slots, and then you should be really close to what Unifi X looks like.
And it will be the close slot to the socket.
I doubt that. I think it's one from either side, actually.
No. Different one. Different PCB.
Yeah, it's different PCB.
So,
But in terms of positioning. But later on you will see that for sure.
Yeah.
You can put them side by
Maybe
side.
when the CPU launches, maybe we can have them, Mike?
I'll try to arrange. We have to see if we can get them in time. But I will try to, when the CPU launches, we're not going to tell you yet when that is, but we'll try to get those motherboards in.
Okay, you also have some boards over there, right? The big box you took?
Yep. So let's take a quick look at some of the Z590 models. If you want to see them in more detail, make sure to check out our live stream from last month about the Z590 models. Here we have our Z590 Godlike. It's a really high-end motherboard, 20-phase 90 amp VRM design, 4 M.2 slots. Also the FinStack cooling on the VRM. Dynamic dashboard, which means there's a nice screen behind this if you switch it on. This one does have RGB lighting. Also a really cool feature on the back. You'll have a very large backplate that will also help to cool the VRM from the back of the motherboard. So if you want to have more details about this, make sure to check out our live stream from last month.
Yeah, the 13th Z590 live stream.
I will quickly show some more motherboards that we've been showing there, just as a quick teaser. Let's go to our Ace.
Hey, yeah, okay. So we also have a giveaway. I already did the lucky draw like 10 minutes ago. The winner is his nickname is way too complicated. Mike.
Oh.
Okay, so Sebastian Calvano Bravo. Congratulations, you won. In the coming weeks, no, not in the coming weeks, in the coming days, we will send you the game code by email. And if other people, let me go to main, if you want to win Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you can still participate. If you already did, no problem. We will do more lucky draws during this live stream.
So like the mini, oh yeah, continue.
Yeah, I wanted to finish. And if you're if you're watching on Twitter or Periscope or Facebook, please go to your YouTube or Twitch channel. There is a bot running which will spam the giveaway link from Gleam. You can also go to msi.com/2/insider.
Like the mini ITX board, both Godlike and Ace offer dual Thunderbolt 4 slots. So let me quickly show you. Those are these Type-C ports. And they also have DisplayPort input. So if you connect your graphics card to these slots, you can also use Thunderbolt to connect your monitor.
And USB 4, but
later on we will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, okay.
Then we have one of our MPG models. So this is the MPG Z590 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi.
I like that board.
Yeah, I really like the aesthetics of this one.
Without RGB.
This one has RGB.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not really an RGB guy.
But if you like this board, but you don't like RGB, look, we have a little switch right there. You can just switch it off, and you have no RGB anymore. But this one does have RGB in the chipset cooling, but also illuminated dragon on the cooling of the VRM.
Let me put the chat back up. Ooh.
And then I have two more models right
when
here.
When is the Godlike board out? Do you know which boards are MPE already?
I think Godlike should be a little later. Ace should be first wave already. So that can arrive any minute. Best to check with your local retailer when they expect it.
In some countries can be already available because first batch is from before Chinese New Year.
Yeah. Depends a bit per country if it's already available or not. So.
And I think in the coming weeks, maybe days, you will also start to see reviews of several different boards.
Yeah, for sure.
Because media already has them.
Here we have the MEG Z590 Tomahawk Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Today we have another Tomahawk board based on the B560 chipset.
Yeah, so later we will talk about this.
Yeah, we will talk more about that.
Detail.
They share a lot of similarities, of course. Also in the way they look. And the same goes for the MEG Z590 Torpedo. And today we'll also show the B560 Torpedo.
Indeed, indeed.
So if you want to know more about any of these boards, make sure to check out the live stream about the Z590 motherboards. We had... hey, my background is not complete. Do you see that?
Who did that?
I'm missing something.
Yeah. One moment. Transform, stretch to screen.
Fit
to screen.
There we go. Much better.
Nobody noticed. I don't see any complaints.
Let me see if we... Will there be an AMD version of these in spec-wise? What do you mean? Like the exact same board with an AMD chipset and socket?
No, everything is always different. Yeah. I mean, it first of all depends on the chipset possibilities. And you know, if AMD and Intel launch at the same moment, then it would be possible. But normally they have a different schedule. So the next generation AMD, whenever that will come out, it will have probably newer, and newer is not always better, but newer or better audio chips, maybe faster USB devices. Well, this has USB 4, and I don't know about USB 4 or 5, sorry, 4.1 or 5. So yeah.
And it's also different CPUs come with different possibilities, and also different chipsets come with different possibilities. Yeah. And we'll always try to make the best board for the possibilities of that platform.
Yes.
So if a platform is not identical, usually you will not see identical boards either. For example, in Z590 and B560, you have the chipset integration of USB 20G. So that's for sure something you will see on those motherboards that you might not see on another platform. But yeah, every CPU and chipset, they offer their own possibilities, and we try to make the most out of those possibilities.
Okay, so let's talk about B560 and H510, because that's what we are talking about today.
Yeah, so first let's take a look at the different segments again. In our enthusiast series, we don't have any B or H series chipset, because for enthusiasts, we think that the Z series chipset is the way to go, for example, because it offers overclocking support. On our MPG series, in the future, we don't have this model here today, but in the future we will have a mini ITX model in our MPG series on B560, which is the MPG B560I Gaming Edge Wi-Fi. Really cool model. Unfortunately, we cannot show it to you yet today, but in a later stage we definitely will. Then in our MEG series, we have some boards that we will show you today. The MEG B560 Tomahawk Wi-Fi, the MEG B560 Torpedo. Then we have the MEG B560M Mortar. We have that one in two versions. So we have the Mortar Wi-Fi, which obviously comes with Wi-Fi, and the MEG B560M Mortar without Wi-Fi. That's also the only difference between those boards. They look slightly different because one has darker heat sinks than the other. One has got like a gunmetal gray tint, and the other one is more silver. But other than the color and the Wi-Fi, they're identical. So it's basically, do you want Wi-Fi or not, or do you prefer a certain color or not? And then we have the MEG B560M Bazooka. In our Pro series, we also have several models, both for B560 and H510. Let's first take a look at B560. We have the B560M Pro VDH Wi-Fi, the B560M Pro VDH, the B560M Pro Wi-Fi, the B560M Pro, and the B560M -A Pro. As you can see, it's all B560M, and that means all of these are micro ATX motherboards.
Yeah, because we had a question from Repo Man. I'm guessing that most of these mainboards will be ATX form factor. No. So there is actually...
It depends.
Yeah, so actually two ATX models, the B560, the Tomahawk and Torpedo, and the rest are mostly micro ATX, and some too are the top one, the MPG, and the where is it? Oh,
yeah, the easiest way to see it, if you just look at the chipset name, so B560, if there is nothing added directly to B560, then it's an ATX model. If it has an M attached, so B560M, it's a micro ATX. And if it has an I, B560I, then it's mini ITX.
Yes.
That's a very easy way to see. So as you can see, most of the B560 boards are micro ATX. And then we also have several H510 motherboards in our Pro series. The H510M Pro, the H5M-A Pro, and the H5i Pro Wi-Fi. So both the M models are of course micro ATX again, and the H510i is the mini ITX model. Pricing. I already saw some people asking about the prices.
Also about VGA, GPU prices. Sorry, cannot help you.
No, today we will stick to the motherboard prices, but this is a price indication, so it might differ per region. For example, the euro price that you see here is including VAT. For this, we're calculating with 20% VAT because that's kind of the average that you will see within Europe. But of course, this differs per country. So in some countries, it may be higher, for example, 25%, whereas in other countries, it's maybe 15%. So then the price can be slightly lower. But it also differs on many different aspects other than VAT. So per region, prices can differ a bit, also per seller. We don't decide the specific prices. The retailer can decide the prices for themselves. So this is just a price indication. The MSRP in US dollar is excluding VAT. Also the VAT, of course, differs per state even. So this is just an indication excluding VAT for the US dollar price.
Yeah, we're not going through all the models. It's in the end, this is just an indication, and it's best to check in your own local favorite web shop or shop, so that you have the real price for your own region, because it really can differ.
See, comment in chat. Mike ain't gonna stop Eric. If you want to talk, you have to attack. Yeah, I always do. I will just go in between. Don't worry. Yeah, so you see prices differ, of course, per chipset, per model. H510 motherboards basically start at $89 excluding VAT, or 89 euro including VAT, all the way up to $189 excluding VAT, 189 euro including VAT, for the highest end B560 model. Here you can see that even though MEG is positioned under MPG, doesn't mean that MPG models are always more expensive. Of course, depends on the exact feature set. These are also different form factors. So you can see, for example, the MPG B560i Gaming Edge Wi-Fi is slightly less expensive than, for example, the Tomahawk. But the Tomahawk, because of its size, for example, offers some additional features like 3x M.2, etc. But later on, we will go into more detail about the specific models. Yeah. But this is an indication of the price that you can approximately expect. So let's take a look at our different colors for this generation. We would like to give some of our boards more of an own identity. And
so this is the MEG segment?
The MEG segment. So this is our Arsenal series gaming motherboards. You might be familiar with all the names that you see here: Tomahawk, Torpedo, and Bazooka. We've all had them in previous generations as well. Tomahawk, in terms of aesthetics, goes basically in the same way that we had in the previous generation. Torpedo and Bazooka get a bit more of their own identity. And of course our Arsenal series are all related to, also as you can see in the names, to army related topics basically. So also we got some different army colors. Torpedo is of course something that the Navy uses. So there you can see blue, and Bazooka has got a nice army green color. Maybe let's already grab these motherboards. So let's start off with Torpedo. So it's a bit of the gunmetal gray finish that you might be familiar with.
Is this Torpedo?
No, this is Tomahawk.
Yeah, you said Torpedo.
Oh, sorry, no, Tomahawk.
I was like...
So it's like the...
You also have the Z590 over there, right?
Yes, I do.
Can you maybe, because that
I can show
also a lot
side.
of people are wondering, you know, there is a difference in chipset, Z590 and B560, but of course we can make more differences on the board as well. So on the left side you see the Z590, and on the right side you see the B560.
This is the Z590 and B560.
Yeah, both are Tomahawk, and of course they have different specs, but you also see both of them have 3 M.2 slots. It's difficult for Mike to indicate, but the B560 on the right side for you, it only gets 2 M.2 Shield Frozrs, basically coolings for your M.2 device, M.2 SSD.
Yeah.
So besides the specs from the chipset difference, we can also make other differences, and because of that, there is also a price gap.
Yeah. Indeed, there are always. It's not that even though the chipset is different, that's the only difference in the motherboard. Of course, different chipsets also give different possibilities with motherboards. So this is the B560 model. So as Eric already mentioned, 2 times M.2. But we can take a look at the slide as well. There you see some of its specifications. Oh, it's stuck. Hello? Ah, there we are. So it offers extended heatsink cooling. So as you can see, one big heatsink that spreads all the way over the I/O. I can show you up close. And that's to increase the surface area for better heat dissipation. So it's really big, and this is all made out of metal. And you got some fins right there as well to increase the surface area for better heat dissipation. It has a very strong VRM design. So even though these cannot overclock your CPU, you can still benefit from this because we have a very nice feature where the CPU can still run at its full boost frequency for a longer period of time than usually. So you still get more performance out of your CPU even though you're not using a Z-series chipset.
Is it waterproof, Torpedo?
I wouldn't try. I wouldn't recommend it. But it's a good question. Then this specific model has both 2.5 gigabit LAN and an Intel Wi-Fi 6E. It has 3 M.2 slots. One's there, one is there, and one is there. This one is the Gen 4 slot. Important to note here is that this slot will only work if you use an 11th gen Intel Core processor. That's also why you see the sticker on there. I don't know if you can read it. But... And that's the Gen 4 slot. If you're not using that, this slot will be disabled and you will have 2 Gen 3 slots. Also, if you use an 11th gen, this will be Gen 4, this will be Gen 3.
So, a lot of questions, Mike. Not even playing CSGO? No, yeah,
later on
we're going
we'll
to
demonstrate
benchmark
CSGO. Yeah. That's why you see it.
You don't want to see Mike playing CSGO.
I'm not that bad at
I didn't say
I can
that.
aim. I'm just not patient enough for CSGO.
That's,
you have to hold angles and
the
stuff.
root cause.
Yeah, I'm more of an arena shooter player, so I just dive right in there. Yeah, let's take a look at the further at the I/O. You will see the USB 20G right there, Lightning USB 20G, and it has a nice pre-installed I/O shield, so you cannot lose it anymore. Also very convenient when installing the motherboard in your case.
Question on YouTube: are the both Tomahawks using power stages? No.
On Z590 they are. On
yes.
B560 they are not. So that's also a difference in between.
This also has to do that you cannot overclock the CPU.
Exactly.
You can only overclock the memory. Yeah, the CPU is power hungry. So if you want to overclock the CPU, it's better with power stages. And that's why B560 or H510 don't have the power stages. Yeah. No need for it.
Depends a bit per model. For example, Mini ITX, you don't have the space for regular MOSFETs. So there you can sometimes find them. But on the ATX models, you will find power stages on actually all Z590 ATX boards from MSI. So also the Pro series also have power stages on Z590. And that of course has to do with the fact that you can overclock there. So this is our new MEG B560 Torpedo. And as you can see, you have a nice blue finish. It's hard to see in the camera.
Yeah, it's today we have a light and camera nightmare. Yeah. I mean, it's all the settings, and later you will see Mike struggling with his benchmark nightmare, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, should be okay.
Should be okay. Maybe you can show the stickers, Mike.
Yeah. Right here you can see a small indication, and right there you can personalize your motherboard further. So all these B560 MEG models come with some nice stickers, and you can customize your motherboard with it. You will also see some round stickers at the bottom, and those are for your BIOS battery. So if you don't like the looks of your regular BIOS battery, you can just put a sticker on top to personalize. You don't have to do this, of course. If you don't like it, just don't do it. Just keep it as it is. But if you want to give it a more differentiating look, then go for it. It comes included in the box with all the MEG models on B560. Yeah. And also Z590, by the way. So let's take a look at the specs that this model offers. I think we're stuck again because this is Tomahawk. There we go. So it also offers the extended heatsink cooling. So again, very big, like I also showed on the Tomahawk, but of course slightly different color here. Goes all the way over the I/O. Powerful VRM design to get those boost frequencies for a long period of time. Of course, if you want to use that, make sure you use proper cooling. If we're going to use a boxed cooler, then the possibilities to run it at a boost frequency for a longer period of time will be limited. For example, today we're using our MEG Core Liquid 240R, so then there's no problem to run even a higher spec CPU on their boost frequency for a longer period of time. This motherboard also offers 2.5 gigabit LAN right there.
Whoa, one moment, yes.
And it also has a second LAN connector that's Intel 1 gigabit LAN. So dual LAN on this one, but no Wi-Fi on this model.
Yeah, something like this we're also using for a streaming PC, right?
Yeah.
Dual LAN.
Exactly.
One for internal LAN and the other one for one.
Yeah, indeed. So one basically we use to stream, to upload to the internet, and the other to connect to all the devices that we're actually capturing over the network. Indeed.
A lot of questions again. Stickers, everybody likes, nice. Let me see. Mortar, we'll talk later about that.
That will be the next one up.
Pricing, we just talked about pricing. So a few, like 10 minutes ago, we talked about all the pricing.
A quick peek, if I go back here, take a screenshot.
Screenshot.
Yeah. Fast. In 3, 2, 1, and back.
Yeah.
This motherboard also offers 3 M.2 slots, and this one has a single M.2 Shield Frozr. So you get a slot right there, second slot, and the third slot. But this one only has one M.2 Shield Frozr.
Yeah.
But it does also offer the pre-installed I/O shield.
Skylander, he's on his Wii. Can you watch this on Wii? Yeah, should be. Why not?
Yeah,
anyway.
Wii has. Yeah, it has a browser.
He's asking about Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt you will find more on the mini ITX boards and the
top-end Z590 models.
Yeah. So we talked about it 1 month ago in our live stream. You will not find Thunderbolt on our B boards, so B or H, because Thunderbolt is quite expensive, and on this price point, it's not affordable.
This, for example, Z590 Ace, there you will have 2 Thunderbolt 4 connectors.
Yeah.
So mini ITX Unifi and got like an Ace on Z590 all offer a dual Thunderbolt.
Yeah, I'm today the cameraman, exactly. Should shut up and just click.
That's what you're for, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, where is the MPG B560 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi? Sorry, we don't have any picture of that board or render or...
That's actually the ITX version, so MPG B560I Gaming Edge Wi-Fi. That model will also come later, so...
It's actually, it would ship, we are going to record a video for that. So we get one, but not in yet.
So, which also means that we will show you in a live stream later on.
Sure.
It's mini ITX, so you're guaranteed that it will be shown.
By Mike?
Yeah, for sure. But we don't have that model at this point yet, unfortunately.
No.
But I can promise you it's going to be cool. We already had a question about Mortar, right?
Yes.
So let's take a look at that one. I have a sample for Mortar. Of
you need to
B560
go back
Mortar
and forward
Wi-Fi.
again?
Oh, there we go. But I will move my camera a little bit because today...
Mortar is selected as our...
Yeah, as our demonstration setup. So...
Is it white?
Hmm?
Is it white?
No, it's got silver heatsinks, and that's because this is the Wi-Fi version. The non-Wi-Fi version has got like a dark gunmetal gray finish, a bit like a Tomahawk. So this is a micro ATX motherboard. You can see my boxes with motherboards right here, but so it's shorter than ATX.
Ah, well, what is that box I don't recognize?
This box.
Yeah.
Sneak peek.
Ooh.
No one has seen this, okay? But that's our new liquid cooling.
Oh. Don't show.
Okay, I will quickly move it out of the way. So let's go back to our MEG B560M Mortar Wi-Fi. So micro ATX motherboard, but still very strong VRM design. So it also, right now, for example, it's running with a 10400 and also uses the higher boost frequencies because we're using MEG Core Liquid for the arc cooling as well. So if you use proper cooling, these can run these processors at their boost frequencies. So you get some free performance there. Let's take a look at the I/O. Right here you have your 2.5 gigabit LAN. This model, of course, comes with Wi-Fi 6E from Intel. Of course, the regular Mortar doesn't, only the Mortar Wi-Fi does. It has two M.2 slots. It's a little bit hard to show right now because there is a graphics card on top and one is underneath. But the primary one, so the Gen 4 supported one, you can see on top. It also has M.2 Shield Frozr on there. There we go. Pre-installed I/O Shield as well, so very convenient.
Yeah, we can show that here as well.
Yeah. And Lightning USB 20G on the USB Type-C port. Let me readjust my camera. I think it should be okay, right, like this. Then, if you're into micro ATX, you've got some more options. And one of them is our MEG B560M Bazooka motherboard. Let me grab that one.
Oh, you also have one. I didn't know.
Of course I have one.
Of course I have
Of course I have one. I'm curious what our green screen will do with this because it has some green elements in it.
It's
quite
pretty
okay. It's quite okay. It's like, because it's not like a very bright green. It's more of like an army green. Let me show it in the main
cam. That's better quality. Yeah, so it's...
So it's like an army green finish, basically.
I don't want to say green. Let me... It's
like a darker...
It's grey, green grey.
No, this is not grey.
Oh, this is for later. Here we are. Yeah, maybe the picture shows it best.
It's easier to see on the picture.
The colors.
But that's especially because of our camera limit. Yeah, you can see it slightly. But I think it looks really cool in real life. Yeah. I really like the finish on this. It offers extended heatsink cooling. So again, you can see like the larger heatsink that goes all the way over the connectors to increase the surface area. It has 2.5 gigabit LAN, no integrated I/O Shield here, so that's a difference with, for example, the Mortar. It does offer two M.2 slots. One, of course, can support Gen 4, and then you get a second Gen 3 slot right there. And the Gen 4 slot comes with M.2 Shield Frozr cooling. And it also offers the CPU cooler tuning, where if your CPU cooler allows it, you can run your CPU at a higher frequency.
So Mike, can you please explain what Lightning USB is?
Lightning USB 20G is...
somebody's asking, is it new?
No, we've had it on previous generations as well, on, for example, Z490 and B560. But then we had to do it with a separate chip, and right now it's included in the chipset. Okay,
Matt is asking DVI-D. Does this one, can you maybe show on detailed cam?
This one comes with HDMI and DisplayPort.
Yeah, do you know, so Mortar, let me see if we have, so there is one more, sorry, Bazooka. So Mortar maybe DVI?
No, there's no DVI on the gaming boards.
Yeah, so basically only HDMI.
No, and DisplayPort. HDMI and DisplayPort.
Sorry, yeah.
But DVI, you don't really see it that often anymore.
Yeah, he was asking specifically about that.
Yeah, in the past it was quite common, but basically on most monitors also got replaced by a DisplayPort.
I think one of the reasons for this is also that everybody's pushing higher resolutions, talk about 4K, 8K.
And also higher refresh rates, and that also makes a big difference in the way you're connecting your monitor.
Yeah, and then DVI.
Sorry, I was thirsty.
I'm missing my drink. Okay, water it is.
But it differs per motherboard. For example, I have a Pro model. I will show you more in detail later. But this one, for example, also comes with a VGA port. Right there.
Ooh, we still have.
Because in this segment, many people tend to use monitors that maybe don't have HDMI or DisplayPort. If you do have it, you of course have those as well. But this one also comes with VGA.
But this is a Pro board.
Yeah, this is a Pro Series motherboard.
H510.
Yeah, this H510.
HDMI 2.1, Edwin K is
no, it's
asking about.
in this situation on the Bazooka, it's HDMI 2.0B, I believe.
And are there any boards like Mini ITX which have HDMI 2.1?
No, not in this generation.
Okay.
You will find that, for example, on our B550 Mini ITX board.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the detailed cam.
But no, these, so the B560 and the H510 don't have HDMI 2.1.
Nick is asking, is Lightning on just MSI motherboards or other brands as well? Well, it's all brand name for fast USB. So you will not find it on other boards. It's just USB 20G.
20G. Yeah. Also known as USB 3.2 Gen 2 x 2.
Yes.
To make it easier.
Yeah.
Jiraiya is asking, MSI Dragon Energy drink? No, it's
well, actually we have.
Coca-Cola. yeah, we do have it somewhere.
Yeah, for some events in the past we designed it, so.
But I'm just having a Coke. Let me just put it there before I knock it over.
Case queue, not sure about your question, but can this run case queues? Yes, they will work. Can you overclock them? No, because there are B560 chipsets, so you can only overclock the memory, and soon Michiel is going to show you what kind of benefits this will give. Yeah,
so these motherboards, indeed they can run it, but it doesn't make sense because usually you buy a case queue, it is more expensive than a non-case queue, and it's only worth it to pay the extra money if you're actually going to use the overclocking capabilities.
We see that a lot. That you know, like media is trying to combine the most high-end CPU with an entry-level board. It doesn't make sense. I mean, normally everything is in balance, meaning that if you have an entry-level board, you don't buy a high-end CPU. And also, I mean, yes, it can run it, no problem. But if you're going to overclock or do strange things, there are always limitations. It's
like the BIOS support is there, but these boards are, for example, the more entry-level boards, like for example this H510 board I have right here. This is a most entry-level model that we have basically, and this is not designed, for example, to run a Core i9. Yes, it can support it through the BIOS. Yes, if you run it very conservatively, you can run it. But if you're going to put heavy workloads on this for a longer period of time, I would not recommend going, for example, with an H510 motherboard. You can also see that there is no dedicated cooling on the VRM on this specific model, which is fine if you're running, for example, a Core i3. It's perfectly suitable to run that, or maybe even a Pentium, etc. But this is not designed for a Core i9. So yes, you can use it. No, it's not a smart combination.
It's not recommended, and indeed, this also decides the price. I mean, no heatsink. Heatsinks cost quite a lot of money. So yeah, price will be low, and that's why it's entry level.
Yeah, and that's indeed what you mentioned. With some media, they test, for example, the most entry-level motherboard on AM4 we had, for example, and they put, for example, a 12 or even a 16-core Ryzen 9 on there, and in some situations even overclock it. Yes, of course, then the VRM will get hot because those boards are not designed for those CPUs. No. Yes, they can run it, but no, it's not a logical combination.
Okay, are we now to the part where you're going to...
Let's first take a look at our pro models.
Giveaway.
Oh, a giveaway, that's a good idea.
Yes. Draw winners. You do the talk.
Yeah, so if you have participated yet, go to msi.com/2/insider. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, you can also follow the direct link to Gleam that our bot will put in the chat once every 5 minutes. In Gleam, you can perform several actions. The more actions you perform, the bigger chance you'll have to win. And if you're a returning visitor, make sure to claim your loyalty bonus as well.
And the next winner got it because of his loyalty bonus.
Yeah, indeed. We can see like with which entry the person won. The previous one was by visiting MSI Gaming on YouTube. This winner won with claiming the loyalty bonus.
Yes.
And the nickname is J Lots. Congratulations. You also won a game code for Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah. I saw there will be an update for Valhalla with some new river raids or something.
Oh, I've missed that.
Yeah, I used to play this game, but I stopped like when Cyberpunk came.
You switched.
Priorities, yes. And now I'm back to Battlefield 4. So anyway.
Still on 4.
Sorry?
Still on Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
In some situations, I also prefer the older games over new.
It needs an upgrade, but it's still gameplay and.
I also have that with Quake. The older version, I also think it's better than like Quake 3 Arena. I prefer that over Quake Champions, for example, or Quake Live for that matter, because it's basically the same as Quake 3 Arena.
Okay, so overclock time?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Let's first take a look at our Pro Series motherboards. I already quickly showed a few of them. In Pro Series we have several different models. I'm not going through all of them because in some situations there are minor differences. Sometimes, for example, that one has a VGA port and the other one doesn't. So many different options here. I do want to show several models. Here on the image you can, for example, see our Mini ITX model. Unfortunately, we don't have that model right here yet.
But this model was not on your list, on your overview.
No, not yet. I don't have the pricing information for that one yet.
I was talking about it, and I said maybe NDA, and I was why don't we show it here? But okay.
No. Later on there will be an H510 Mini ITX model, and you can see it on this image. As you can see, it comes with extended heatsink cooling, for example. Also 2.5 gigabit LAN, Intel Wi-Fi 6. It has the M.2 Shield Frozr as well. So a nice, more affordable option if you want to go with a Mini ITX motherboard. The other model you see in the top right is the B560M Pro motherboard. I actually have that model right here. So let me just show it. That's always nicer than just an image. There we go.
Yes.
So here you can see, for example, this is a more basic model. This one doesn't have any dedicated VRM cooling. So this is a model that, for example, you can combine with a Core i3 processor. And yes, of course, you can run a higher CPU on that, but I wouldn't recommend it. It does come with M.2 Shield Frozr, for example, quite a lot of connectivity. And for example, the display port, the VGA port, and the HDMI port. Oh, sorry, that's the display port, VGA, and HDMI. No, it was the other way around. This is the display port. And that's the HDMI.
They're all three there.
This is confusing because there is a little... It doesn't come with a pre-installed IO Shield.
HDMI.
So this is the HDMI VGA display port. Let me show it up close. There we go.
The focus isn't... Yeah, okay, there it is.
Important to mention, this model, for example, has 2 DIMM slots, but of course there are also options with 4 DIMM slots, so it all depends on what you need. But of course this is a more affordable model than the one with your VRM cooling and your 4 DIMM slots. So let's take a look at that model maybe. There we go. So this is the B560M Pro VDH Wi-Fi.
Ooh, it's a whiteboard.
And yeah, it's also micro ATX, but indeed you can see that if I grab the previous board again, this is a lot wider than the one I just showed. So in theory it's the same form factor.
Only the height is defined.
Yeah, the height is the same indeed. Yeah. But it is strange in a sense because with ATX and extended ATX, the height is also the same, but the extended ATX is wider. But in this situation, they're actually both called micro ATX, so it can be a little bit confusing. But if you buy a micro ATX case, then it should be able to fit this one as well.
Sure.
This is it has a lot more features, as you can already see. This one has the VRM cooling. It has a stronger power delivery. So this is not only suitable for Pentium or Core i3, for example, also Core i5 perfectly fine, maybe even a Core i7. Here you can also see it has a lot more features. For example, offers Intel Wi-Fi 6. It also has both HDMI and DisplayPort and VGA. You get 4 DIMM slots here. That's also why the motherboard is wider than the other one. It has M.2 Shield Frozr. So all in all, quite a lot of features. It is a Pro Series motherboard, so of course it looks neutral. But feature-wise, also a very nice option, I think. Yeah,
so a lot of people talking about Dr. Moss or power stages in this segment, but in this segment it's not doable because of cost. Those power stages are quite expensive, and they're useful if you want to overclock.
Yes.
But like in this segment, you cannot either overclock. The chipset doesn't allow it on H510 or B560, so it's just wasting money.
Yes, indeed. Like for example, on mini ITX, in some situations you don't have a choice because you're limited on space, and a traditional VRM design takes up more space because you need a driver, a high side MOSFET, a low side MOSFET. So yeah, it takes a lot more space than when you use a power stage, which is a single chip that has everything in there. So that's why in some situations you will see it on mini ITX. But it doesn't make sense to do it on boards like these because they will become noticeably more expensive, and you cannot overclock your CPU anyway on them. If you want power stages on, for example, a micro ATX or an ATX motherboard, then take a look at the Z590 series, where you will benefit way more from having power stages because you can overclock your CPU. I see a question, how many motherboards are there behind you? I need to count. I got 3 Pro Series motherboards right here, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Z590 motherboards. So in total I've got 8 here, and then I've got 3 in front, and I've got 1 on my demo setup. So quite a lot of motherboards. Then let's take a look at the H510M Pro. So this is one of the most affordable models in our lineup.
One moment, I'm lost. Yes,
yeah.
Here we are.
That's the right one. So here you see, for example, you don't have any additional cooling on your M.2 slot or on your VRM. This is really a cost-effective solution.
It's funny that the chipset still gets cooled.
Yeah.
Of the PCH.
Still needs some cooling.
Nowadays.
You can see it's not a huge heatsink, but it does need some cooling. But this is really it's an entry-level option.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what your needs are. If you're going to run a Pentium or Core i3, perfectly fine. VRM is perfectly capable of running that. If you're putting a Core i9 in there, yes, in theory it's supported, but it will throttle. Here also on the I/O, you see you get your HDMI VGA DisplayPort. It's all a little bit more basic, but if you're building a simple system, just a bit for basic office usage, it's fine.
These boards don't support USB 20G.
No.
And you also see SATA, there are only 4 connectors on there, 2 angled in the middle of the board. Can you maybe?
Yes.
Yeah,
right here
2 angled and 2 straight or non-angled.
Yeah.
Still it has USB 3 for the front.
Yep.
Pin header.
Right there.
Yeah,
but for example, you don't have a front Type-C connector for this. 2 DDR4 slots.
Yeah.
Let me
One
see.
M.2.
You do get both a JRainbow and a JRGB header.
Oh,
so you can still use some RGB with it. So you will get those extra RGB FPS, of course. It comes with a single M.2. You can see an additional M.2 connector there, but this is if you want to use a Wi-Fi module. So this is not suitable for an SSD. You can also see it's too short.
Yeah.
So if you want to expand this with
M key or something like that?
Yeah, I believe it's like a 2230.
Yeah.
And this is even a 22110. So only a single M.2 slot for storage, and because it's H510, that's a Gen 3 slot. On B560, that will be a Gen 4 slot. So those were my Pro Series models. Let me see, I see some more questions.
Yeah, they want free mainboard, they want free processor, and etc. etc.
And a free boat and a free car. Free house, maybe.
Why don't you make an angle 24 pin? Yeah, that's an internal discussion. Let's say we had this discussion in the past because it looks interesting. It will give some compatibility with cases because your case needs to be big enough.
Compatibility issues. Yeah.
Sorry?
Compatibility issues.
Yeah.
You said compatibility with cases. So
it gives compatibility issues indeed.
If you have a larger case, it's usually not that much of a problem. But if it's a smaller case, then if you have an angled connector, the cable will stick out a lot from the side. Yeah. So in some cases, it just doesn't fit, or you cannot properly route your cables away.
We're going to do some benchmarks to CSGO. Don't worry. Yep. Don't worry. We don't let Mike play.
Another thing that is important to mention if you're using an angled ATX connector, it also takes up space on your PCB, because if you turn it 90 degrees, it's taller than it is wide. So, basically the tallness becomes the width, so it takes more space in your PCB, especially on smaller motherboards. That can easily become an issue.
And our product engineers or product managers, they didn't like the idea. It was like it was not solid enough for them to put it on the market, and we looked at converters, etc., like an angled block, but yeah.
We've had it on, I believe, one model. It's a while ago, the X570 Creation has an angled connector.
Indeed.
But there you see that's also an extended ATX motherboard where you do have the PCB space. They're usually used in larger cases, but especially in the sizes of B560. People usually don't buy a huge computer case with a B560 motherboard. That's not the most logical combination. Also because the bigger cases tend to be more expensive, and people who buy them usually go for a C-series motherboard.
Is there an
ARGB header in the B560M Pro VDH? Yes, I believe so, but let me double check that for you. But I'm pretty sure there is. Yep.
How to find it?
Right there.
Yes, so actually I think all boards can do RGB.
Yes, but this is also the addressable one. So this is J-Rainbow and the J-RGB right there. So that's the 4-pin and the 3-pin. So this is the 12-volt and the 5-volt. But even if I grab, for example, the H510, so basically our most cost-effective option, this one already offers the J-Rainbow here. So that's the addressable one, and also the J-RGB right there. So that's very, you can find it on all motherboards. Even
it all can run fast.
Yeah.
With RGB. Okay, Mike.
Let's talk a little bit about memory, because that's of course a huge change when comparing B460 to B560. On B series, on Intel, you were usually never able to overclock. On B560s, you're still not able to overclock your CPU. You still do need a Z590 chipset for that. But you can overclock your memory, and you can even overclock it very far. Here you see some examples of the speeds you can achieve. Of course, this depends on your memory modules, also how many you use. But on the mini ITX model, which is an 8-layer board with, of course, 2 DIMMs, because it's mini ITX, it can go all the way up to 5200 megahertz. On all our gaming B560 boards, so Tomahawk, Torpedo, Mortar, and Bazooka, all of those have a 6-layer PCB, and all of those offer 4 DIMM slots, and you can go up to 5066 megahertz.
So the memory speed depends, of course, on your chipset and on your CPU you're using. But this generation, Intel raised it to 3200 by default.
Yeah, in the future generation. So the 11th generation that they announced, it's not launched yet, but then the native frequency will already be 3200 megahertz.
Indeed,
but with B560, you can go way, way beyond that.
Yeah, and now the big change is that finally in B560, you can also overclock your memory. Not your CPU, that's only in Z, but your memory.
So if we're talking about the demo system I have right here, so I'm running an Intel Core i5-10400 CPU. If I would run this on the B460 460 mortar, then it would run the native frequency of the memory controller in the CPU. Because it's a Core i5, that's 2666 megahertz. But now I'm using B560, which can overclock memory. And later on we will demonstrate this with DDR4 3466, so 800 megahertz higher. Then we will show you some benchmarks of what kind of difference that makes in different use cases.
Can you tell us when the new MSI Center will get released? No. We wanted to do a live demo today because Mike is working on MSI Center with our engineers in Taiwan. But yeah, no, too early.
Too early, yeah. We're still working on it.
We will show you some screenshots and we will talk about it, but that's for later.
Yep. Let's take a look at the memory layout on these motherboards, because when B560 can overclock memory, it becomes more important that you get a very clear signal so you can reach those high frequencies in a stable manner. And that's why we're now using the tab routing. We, for example, saw this first on our Z490 motherboards, but this is now also incorporated on our 500 series motherboards. And it's basically an optimized memory trace layout to get that better memory signal and get even higher DDR4 frequencies. Another feature we have in our motherboards is memory triad. And this one, it's basically a huge database with settings, and you can basically try what your memory can do on your motherboard. So the screenshot you see right here is with this exact setup, and there you can see the different options. And memory triad will help you to select the right setting and get the maximum performance out of your configuration. It supports a lot of different modules from different vendors, different chips, etc. So it's a quick and easy way to get more performance out of your memory. Another new feature we have is memory force. And what memory force basically shows you is the overclocking headroom you still have on your memory modules. So right on the right side on this slide you see a readout, and you see that for one DIMM you have more headroom left to overclock than for the other DIMM. So basically it shows you what you can still get out of your memory. So it's an interesting indication, I think.
Legacy ZA is saying you should be ashamed of yourselves of overcharging the products, especially GPUs. Well, like we said some live streams ago, it all comes down to cost. It's not that we are making a lot of more margin. Actually, I believe less. It's, you know,
It's a matter of supply as well. We don't decide the prices that the seller can ask for the product.
Yeah, indeed.
And if there is a lot of demand and not enough supply, then they usually charge more for the same product.
It's transport cost, component cost. It's the supply.
The Corona situation makes it very difficult as well, because indeed shipping costs are way higher than they used to be before Corona. Also, if we're talking about motherboards, for example, one motherboard consists out of hundreds of components. We don't produce those components ourselves either. We have to buy certain components, like for example the MOSFETs and stuff you will find in the VRM design.
In the end, we have to buy everything.
Yeah,
we're just an assembly company.
Yeah, basically we put everything together.
Yes.
But all those components, because of the Corona situation, also got a bit more expensive than they used to be. So you will see all that in the price.
Yeah, but you know, I think in like 4 to 5 months' time, situation will get better step by step. It's not that directly everything will be available. This always happens in small steps, and then supply will improve, price will come down, transport costs will come down. You know, it's graphics cards can be a little bit more difficult because if the cryptocurrency value increases, it's more interesting for miners, and they tend to... will also go down. I mean,
eventually it will always go down, but it very much depends on the demand.
And the blockchain is built in such a way that the difficulty will go up. The more miners there are, the higher the difficulty, the more memory you need. So it's
So then it's not interesting to mine anymore. And, demand decreases and prices will go down.
Yeah.
That's basically how it works.
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do with B560 and even on the Pro models, you can have your full voltage control. So both for your CPU and your memory, you can adjust this. For example, you can use this for undervolting, but also if you're going to overclock your memory, you might want to increase your memory voltage a little bit. Depends very much on the models you're using. Some modules even require a voltage increase to reach their base spec. So very much depends on what you're using, but you now have full control in your BIOS to control this. Maybe it's a good time to take a look at the performance in real life.
My fingers are crossed. we always we never get the retail boards because that's in a later stage. We always want to show you the stuff as early as possible.
So we always have early samples.
Yeah,
we usually call them
boards.
Frankenstein samples.
Yeah. And it's now up to Mike to show you.
So let's see if our Frankenstein samples will properly work again.
Yeah.
Of course, as soon as these boards hit the market, then they're extensively tested and updated, etc. But we always have very early samples. So it's always interesting to see if they fully function or not.
And in live streams,
they
we
tend to
have
fail
problems.
us.
Anyway, I see your mouse moving, so it's working.
Yeah, indeed. I want to show you several things. Right now, this setup runs an Intel Core i5-10400 CPU on the MEG B560M Mortar Wi-Fi motherboard. The GPU is an RTX 3060 Ti Gaming X Trio graphics card. And our memory right now is DDR4 2666. And that's because the native frequency of the memory...
Can you maybe show some CPU-Z or screenshots?
I can open it up. The native memory frequency for the Core i5-10400 that we're using is 2666 megahertz. So if you're running this on, for example, B460, you cannot go higher than this memory frequency. You see 133, and that's because it's double data rate memory. So
I'm going to
DDR.
duplicate this.
So you have to double this number to get the actual frequency. I can, for example, already open AIDA. There you will see it.
Oh, Mike, I wanted to make a like a zoom function.
Oh, sorry, I was wait. Let me go back.
Oh, I'm sorry, like this. Yeah, so I think now more people can see it. So if your other windows, if they go into this window, people can see it bigger. Yeah.
So this is, because it's double data rate memory, you have to multiply this by 2 and then you get your actual memory frequency. So this is DDR4 2666, and that's the native frequency that in this situation the Intel Core i5-10400 CPU can run. If you're using, for example, a 10700, which is an Intel Core i7, then your native memory frequency that you can run is up to 2933 megahertz instead of 2666. With the 11th generation Intel Core processors, you will be able to go up to 3200 natively. With B560, however, you can overclock your memory, so you can go further than this number. So first we're going to run a few tests in this setting, so what you would be able to do on a B460 motherboard. And then we're going to put in some different higher frequency memory to see what kind of difference it makes in different circumstances. So let's close this off and go to AIDA 64. And we're going, in a benchmark, we're going to show you the read and write speeds and the copy speeds, latency, etc. that the memory can reach while running on 2666 megahertz. So the native frequency from the CPU. So let's start it.
Is this like 10 minutes waiting?
No, this is a short benchmark.
Yeah, I know.
Here you can also see memory type. I don't know if, yeah, there you can see it. 2667 it says right now. Yeah, you can already see the read and the write speeds. So the read speeds, a little over 38,000 megabytes per second and a little under 38,000 megabytes per second in write speed. Our latency is about 60 nanoseconds right now. Copy speed a little over 32k megabytes per second.
Can you make a screenshot of this?
Yes,
that we can compare?
I'll quickly let this finish and then I'll take a screenshot.
Yeah.
So we can compare later on when we're running it at 3466 megahertz memory. So there's our screenshot.
Not like how Erik did it last week.
How did you do it?
Of last week, a few weeks ago, was the snippet, and people,
oh
no, use the hotkeys.
Yeah, just use the Windows key print screen.
Yeah.
It's very easy. In your picture folder, screenshots, and there is our screenshot.
Okay.
It's very easy. So let's go to our next benchmark, because this is just theory, basically. What speed can it reach in theory? But now let's look at a benchmark in a practical use case. So this is WinRAR. Most of you will be familiar with this. So this is if you're zipping or unzipping files. It also has a nice benchmark tool. So let's take a look at what it reaches here.
So meanwhile, we have another winner.
Oh,
I did lucky draw. The winner is called AG. AG, congratulations.
AGI, congratulations.
Yes.
You also won a game code for Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yes, and if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, please go to our YouTube or Twitch channel. Because over there our bot will spam each, I think, 5 or 6 minutes link. You can also go to msi.com/2/insider to join the giveaway. And once you entered the whole live stream, we will do lucky draws and you will make chance to win a nice game code. Valhalla.
Definitely. So AG and also the other winners, keep an eye out on your mailbox in the coming days, because we'll email you the game code and some instructions on how to claim it.
Yes.
If you haven't participated yet, go to msi.com/2/insider, or if you're watching on YouTube and Twitch, follow the direct link that our bot will put in the chat every 5 minutes. So we have a score, 16,307. So let me take a screenshot again. And let's cancel this. So basically what this is a workload benchmark. So we had the theory, AIDA, so just the transfer speed that in theory you can reach. Then you get a practical example in WinRAR. And now we're going to show you a gaming example with CSGO. So everyone in the chat who was waiting for CSGO, right now we will show you. I'm not going to play it, by the way. I have a very good reason for that. You can... the magnification thing, you can switch it off again, by the way.
It's a layer.
There we go. Let me fire up Afterburner. I'm not going to play myself, and I'm not going to do that because I want to have a good comparison between the situation at 2666 megahertz and 3466 megahertz. And if I play myself, then the situation will differ. You will never get the
exact... will die a lot.
That too. But other than that, the situation will never be identical. So I got a demo that I will play. The computer will just render it as a normal game. That makes sure that in both situations it renders the same gameplay. So for example, the same smokes will be there, the same flashbangs, etc., etc. So let me minimize Afterburner. We will use Afterburner to show you the frame rate, but also...
Is this a dem file, .dem?
.dem.
Yeah, probably. It's a recorded demo.
Yeah, it's a recorded demo. I've got my line here that I need to copy in there. There we go. No. And then with Afterburner, we will show you the current frame rate, and we will also calculate the average frame rate over, what shall we do, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? How much do you want, Eric?
Let them vote. What is the, I mean, 1 minute should be enough, right?
Yeah, I think so. So right here you see the frame rate is locked in the top left corner. It's 117, 118 FPS right now.
In the menu.
Yeah, this is in the menu. I will put in my line that will unlock the FPS and will also automatically start my demo. During that demo, I will, let me first open it up. In the top left, you can see the frame rate. And when the timer is at 250, I will start the benchmark basically, where it calculates the average FPS over a certain period of time. So 55, 54, 53, 52, and start. So now the second FPS counter you can see in the top left. So the left one is the current FPS, and the one on the right is the average FPS. Yeah, I see in chat people prefer 1 minute.
You didn't play this. I can see this because this guy is killing other people.
I think I should be able to beat this guy.
Okay.
Doesn't seem too good. These are bots.
Oh.
I will run this until 150, so then we have a 1 minute benchmark. And I will do the same when we have our higher clocked memory. So 20 more seconds.
We shouldn't forget about our RGB FPS boost.
Yeah.
That's a nice feature name.
So 2 minutes, 10 more seconds. And 3, 2, 1, and okay. Now I basically locked the second number. So there you see our average over that minute was 317 frames per second. There we go. I hope that also works in a game like this. I think it does, but
you can check your folder.
Yeah, and otherwise you remember, right? 317 FPS. Don't forget.
Panic, panic.
Write it down on your forehead so everyone can see it.
That's difficult.
Yeah, I think it should be doable if you watch like the monitor, then you can see yourself.
No.
Okay, so
I'm using paper. It's a new invention.
Yeah, easier. The latest invention, paper, to write something down. So 317 FPS. So let's.
People are helping. They're writing in the chat as well.
Yeah, let's quit this.
Too bad. There's already something here somewhere. Anyway, I have enough place here to write.
So now we should have 3 screenshots here indeed.
Yes.
So we have AIDA64 for the memory bandwidth, the read and the write speeds. Here we have our benchmark results from WinRAR, and here we have our. It doesn't show Afterburner here.
Okay.
So we do need to remember this.
It's in the chat multiple times. It's half on my forehead, and it's on paper.
Okay, good. Then I'm going to switch this off.
This is going to be fun.
And maybe you can do another giveaway in the meanwhile.
No. You want to distract us. We're going to look how you're going to.
I'm just going to switch out the memory and boot it up.
Yeah. This is the part where all the things can go wrong.
So I've got some other memory modules here. Maybe we can show them up close.
Oh yeah, this one.
So these are, for example, Corsair Vengeance RGB memory sticks, and this is really small, so I'm not sure if you can read it.
It says 3466.
Yeah, exactly. So this is 3466 megahertz. And this is a memory kit of 16 gigabytes, so 2 times 8 gigabytes. It's the same for the other kit, by the way. It's also 2 times 8. So no difference there.
Okay, I will do a giveaway. I will distract the people.
Well, I destroy the system, okay?
Yeah. This is always when we do live builds or something, or there's live benchmarking.
If you really want to see something funny, we actually had Eric building a PC while blindfolded.
Yeah. It was a big challenge.
That was a disaster.
But it
did work.
In the end it worked. The RGB pin, the RGB and the fan pin headers. Oh my god, blind nightmare. And the M.2 screw.
Was it bad?
Probably impossible to put in. The cooler went quite okay, I remember. Drawer. This is a lucky drawer. We're using Gleam for that. Mike, should I switch to another camera that they don't see what you're all doing?
Yeah, they cannot really see much from this camera, but I need
like
to go
this,
to
that oh no.
No, that
like
one
this?
is stuck. Yeah, I first need to go to my BIOS to set.
I will distract them. So giveaway, guys. The next winner is called Noel, and please don't be happy until you get an email. I mean, a few weeks ago we draw a lucky winner, and yeah, another guy with the same name. Almost the same name reacted, yeah, I want a CPU.
Yeah,
no.
someone who was really happy was not the actual winner, but had a similar name.
Yeah, so we will send you in the coming days an email with a game code for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And yeah, if you want to, you can still participate in our giveaway for this game. We have more codes to give away. Go to msi.com/2/insider. And if you're watching on Twitch, I always need to think Twitch and YouTube, or Spambot will also spam the link in the chat. It's a Gleam link. You can click on it, and once you participated, in the next draw you will be included. How far are you?
I'm still waiting to get in my BIOS.
Okay.
I just reset the BIOS because I'm using different memory modules now.
Yeah, that's always. Wait, who won? Again, his name is, or his or her, Noel.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but
Noel.
Noel. That's a nickname.
Yeah, Noel.
And please note, there might be more people with the same nickname. We know it happened before. Let me quickly grab my close-up cam, so maybe I can show you some of this. There we. Let me adjust this.
Yeah.
There we go. It's hard to read, but basically it's
impossible to read.
I did that. I reset my BIOS, so all settings were reset to default values. So I'm going to the BIOS now. If you open the BIOS, this is the first option you will get, and this I don't know if you can read it, but you can see different power limits. So, for example, if you're using the boxed cooler, that's what it says here. Then you have a power limit 1 of 65 watts, power limit 2 of 134, and a current limit of 140 amps. If you have a higher end cooler, like a high-end air cooler, like the tower model, or a liquid cooler, like I'm using right now, 240 millimeter, but maybe you have even bigger, 360 for example, then you can get higher power limits, so your processor can have a longer sustained boost. So this one increases both the first and the second power limit, so PL1 and PL2, to 255 watts, and also the current up to 245 amps. So that basically gives you a lot more performance without actually overclocking. So this is something you can do on a B series chipset as well with your CPU. So I selected the water cooler because that's what we're using. By the way, I also did that in the previous situation with the other memories, so no changes there.
It looks almost like pink. It seems,
yeah,
or detailed cam has some.
It is red.
Yeah.
It's maybe hard to read, but here it says 2133. That's like the default DDR4 setting. So with the previous one, I set it to 2666. But right now we're going to enable XMP. So that's very easy. It's just clicking this button and then save the settings. So here it says the changes I made, enabled XMP. So the setting of 3466 is already in the memory, and the BIOS will automatically read that setting from my memory. So that's basically all you have to do here to get more performance. So no advanced menus to get that higher memory frequency.
Of course, you can.
You can do it. You can go way higher than this. We will show you an example later of way higher frequencies on this exact board. But right now, we're just going with the XMP setting, just very, very easy. This is something everyone should be able to do that is building an own PC.
Yeah.
So let's continue and boot up.
We need to fix a capture card, Mike. That we can capture the BIOS as well.
Yeah. But BIOS is always tricky, even with the capture card, because it's a different resolution.
It's 800 by 600 or something.
Our old capture card always froze when we tried to enter the BIOS.
Yeah. That's why we gave up.
Yeah.
So we're now using the webcam, but actually,
it's not ideal, but at least
it works.
Works.
You should have a band on your head with a camera on there.
Like an action camera.
Yeah. GoPro BIOS. Go BIOS Pro.
So now the system is rebooting, and then I need to enable my screen capture again in order for Eric to capture it.
Yeah.
Okay,
because now we see.
Booted again. So I'm starting.
What do we see? Gameplay. So it's frozen.
I just enabled my screen capture.
Yeah.
So can we see my mouse again?
No, now it's there, I guess.
Let me enable my mouse cursor. Yeah,
yes,
there we are.
Working.
Okay. So let's first take a look at CPU Z.
Zoom function.
Yeah.
Enabled. I see two. Oh, okay.
Okay, as you can see, still same CPU, no difference there. But on memory, this used to be 1333, so double data rate is 2666 megahertz. Now it's 1733, double data rate, so times 2 is 3466 megahertz. So this is 400 megahertz higher than you would get on a B560 motherboard with this exact CPU. So let's close this again, and then we go back to
no screenshot for that? Oh, no.
No, we don't need it for CPU Z. It's just a readout to show. Then let's go back to our benchmark tool. and start benchmark. So here you can already see that both the read and the write speeds are much higher than what we saw.
Can you maybe open the screenshot already?
Yes, I can.
Then we can put it, well, yeah.
I might influence the rest a little bit here, but doesn't matter. It's mostly about the other ones. There we go. So here you can see the previous one. So that was approximately 38,000 for read and write, and latency of 60 nanoseconds. Here you can see over 8,000 read over, or 48,000 read over 49,000 write, and 55 nanoseconds.
It's a really big jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump. But this is theory, like what read and write speeds you can achieve. But it doesn't mean that all software
synthetic benchmark.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that every application will benefit from this. That's also why we were showing you several benchmarks. In some situations, you will barely see a difference between 2666 megahertz and 3466 megahertz. In some applications, you will see a huge jump, especially games or programs that rely a lot on your CPU will benefit more from faster memory than, for example, a game that is GPU limited. For example, if you're running Cyberpunk, which is a very heavy game, there your GPU will basically always be the bottleneck. Yeah. But for example, CSGO
will always be your bottleneck. Yeah. No matter what GPU you have.
Yeah, indeed. And also no matter what CPU you have. A CPU or faster memory barely makes any difference there. But for example, CSGO is exactly the other way around because it's a very light game. So you will render a lot of FPS. It basically does not matter as much what kind of GPU you have. For example, I'm using a 3060 Ti today. If I would use the same setup with a 3090 in CSGO, I would get approximately the same result. So that's a CPU limited situation.
Yeah, and Doras is asking, can you maybe do a test with overclocking the exact same memory, so with XMP and then with manual overclocking? Well, manual memory overclocking takes some time. We need to fine tune, and we don't have time for that today.
And it doesn't matter. If I clock this back, then you will basically get the same results as you will see on the previous kit, because then you're running it in 2666.
No, but he's meaning if you do a manual overclock.
Oh, manual overclock beyond 3466.
What the difference is between running? I mean, yes, manual, you can always overclock higher, and that of course depends on what kind of DIMMs you have, what kind of memory chips you have on the DIMMs. But it takes more time.
It's more trial and error. Right now we're, for example, using XMP, and that's like basically what the memory vendor, in this situation Corsair, guarantees that the memory kit can do. Yeah.
So we just want to show you now that B560 can overclock memory. You can use XMP profiles and go beyond the default by Intel defined clock speed.
Yeah, and basically with one mouse click, what kind of performance increase you can expect.
Two, you need to save.
Yeah, okay. I actually don't do that with a mouse click. I use F10.
Keyboard hero.
Yeah. So yeah, let's take a quick look. So big jump up in the synthetic benchmark. Now let's take a look at practical work case. So we're going to close ADA again, and we're going back to WinRAR.
Can you already open the? Oh yeah, never mind.
Oh yeah, I will do it after. It doesn't.
1 minute. Oh no, this was Counter-Strike. Was 1 minute.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long. That's even shorter.
Yeah. How many pci-express Gen 4 will have? Because 4 M.2. Most boards have 3 M.2 slots, and we will have one board with 4 M.2 slots.
No, on Z590 we have a couple with 4.
Oh yeah.
On the MEG series.
Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Unifi, Ace, and Godlike. Godlike even comes with an additional adding card, so it has 4 plus 2 in an additional adding card. So you can go up to 6 M.2 SSDs. On Ace and Unifi, you can accommodate up to 4. Then on the MPG series, well, basically on Z590, on all other ATX boards, you can accommodate 3. On the ATX B560 models, you can also accommodate 3. And micro ATX, most of the time 2, sometimes 1, depending on the model. The gaming models always have at least 2 M.2 slots. We got a result, by the way, so let me open up the screenshot. So this is our result right now, so 18,800, and this was our previous result, 16,300. So also quite a big jump up. This is the exact same CPU, the exact same CPU frequency. The only thing we changed here is the memory frequency.
Yeah.
It's still 2 times 8 GB as well, so it's just from 2666 megahertz to 3466 megahertz.
And 34 is quite affordable.
Yeah, it's like, especially like basically in between 3200 and 3600, I would say nowadays is the sweet spot in terms of price performance. Those are relatively affordable right now, especially 3200 is barely more expensive than 2666. In some cases it's even cheaper somehow. And it's basically, especially on a B560 motherboard, it's free performance. Yeah, so let's close this one and let's continue with CSGO. So I'm going to open Afterburner again. Neo Damien is asking, all boards have the same VRM? No. It differs per board what kind of VRM design it has. For example, on the MEG B560 Tomahawk will have a way stronger VRM than the most entry-level Pro model, for example.
Yeah.
And on H510, the VRM will of course be more limited than the B560 gaming models. Okay, let's continue with CSGO. So I need to copy my line again. There we go. Skip Daddy is saying also depends on the cache latency. Definitely. You can also fine-tune your latencies further here. Right now we're just using the latencies that were defined in the XMP profile by Corsair. But of course you can also play around with this.
Forza 317, 317. Everybody remembers 317. 317.
It's good that some people remember because
yeah.
I already forgot, but
I wrote it down as well.
Good. So let's run the same benchmark again, but now with a higher clock memory. So I'm going to start it again at 250 and end it again at 150.
$713.
So now you see.
No, it's somebody saying 713. Little drummer boy, shame on you.
So start. So now in the top left, again you see the current frame rate, and the second frame counter is the average frame rate. And then we will wait for a minute and we'll see what the difference is in a game like CSGO. So again, this is a CPU limited title. So here you will be able to see a difference. If you're running a game like Cyberpunk on 4K resolution, you're highly GPU limited, then don't expect to see a change in your frame rate when you're going from 2666 to 3466 megahertz.
Maybe 1.5.
Probably nothing.
No.
Probably nothing. Especially if you're running it at 4K, not even 1 FPS. Okay, 10 more seconds.
2, 1,
and
stop.
So that's 336
yes.
FPS, and we were on 317.
Somebody in the chat said 700. What was it? 730.
So it's an increase of 19 frames per second in CSGO.
Yes. Well, nice.
And this is basically the only thing you have to do. Of course, your memory kit has to support it, but the only thing you have to do is enable the XMP on a motherboard like this. This is not something you can do on B460, but it is something you can do on B560.
Yeah, so it actually makes a difference.
Yeah, in certain situations, yes, and especially in the more competitive titles, there definitely. And some people might argue, is it useful to have 336 opposed to 317? In the past, it used to be more limited, but nowadays, of course, with those high refresh rate monitors, you can actually get refresh rates that go beyond this FPS.
Yeah, 360.
So then your monitor can actually display the extra FPS that you're rendering.
So it makes sense.
So then, yeah, so that, in that situation, you can benefit from it. John is asking, can we see a benchmark with VR? Unfortunately, I don't have anything prepared right now, so it's difficult to do in a short period.
And it really depends on the game, because some games in VR, they are more GPU dependent, but I would say most are CPU dependent. Mike, what do you think? Yeah, because most, they don't look as nice, you know.
Yeah, but VR is quite hard on your GPU as well.
Yeah.
Of course, it will also depend on what kind of VR game. If you're running Half-Life, it will probably be harder than some kind of indie VR game.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, it will differ.
Yeah.
But I think in general, VR is quite intensive on your GPU as well.
I think last year, early 2020, we did 2 live streams about VR with Ja, but we didn't look at the load of the CPU and memory or GPU. We're just playing. It was quite fun. Yeah, this is really interesting to see.
Yeah, so this is, basically the only thing is you get some faster memory, you enable XMP, and you get more performance out of it.
Yeah. And then, like what somebody said, Intel should have done this already on B460.
Yeah, I can somewhat agree with that.
Yeah, to make it more competitive. But it's finally here.
Yeah, I think it's. I think it makes the B platform a lot more interesting for a lot of people, because it's so easy to overclock memory with XMP. Technically, you're overclocking, but basically it's just one button and it works. Of course, CPU overclocking is usually a bit more of a hassle, but that's also not something you can do in the B series. That's still reserved only for the Z series chipset, and of course the X series on the high-end desktop platform for Intel.
Mike, I'm going to draw another winner. Okay? Well,
sure.
It doesn't matter if it's okay. I already did it.
If you want to go further than 3466, because I saw some people that already wanted me to overclock further manually. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that today, but I have some examples of TopPC, our in-house overclocker. He also used this motherboard.
Back and forward.
Congratulations, VJ.
No. Yeah, okay, you can do that, but I
thought our next winner, back and forward of slide.
Yeah.
But VJ, congratulations, you also won a game code for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Keep an eye out on your mailbox so we can email it to you in the coming days. Yeah, so if you haven't participated yet, make sure to do so. MSI.com/.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Just talk about slide. I think they know.
I think so too, but if they just tuned in. Anyway, our TopPC, our in-house overclocker, already did some testing on this motherboard as well. Right here is running 32 gigabytes of memory on 4500 megahertz CL17, for example. We've also been using 2 times 8 gigabytes on DDR4 4600. Of course, it depends very much on the modules, what you can achieve, on how many you use. If you use a single DIMM, you can go way further than if you use 4 DIMMs, for example. Both of these are dual channel examples, so you can see that also on B series chipsets right now, you can really overclock DDR4 memory really far.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a really interesting development on the mid-range segment. We already touched on this a little bit. With the B series chipset, you cannot overclock your CPU, but what you can do is what I showed you in the BIOS, that you can select what kind of cooler you use, and if you're using a more high-end cooling solution, like a bigger tower cooler, or for example an all-in-one liquid cooler that I'm using right now, the motherboard can increase the power limits, so your CPU is able to sustain the boost frequency. So instead of automatically clocking back, it will sustain that higher frequency. So also, for example, if I open up AIDA again,
system.
Let me go. Let me see.
Zoom?
For sure, here I could see it, because here it also says overclocked, I think. Yeah, here it, for example, says this is the base frequency. So usually it would clock back to the base frequency to stay within the power limits. But right now it says overclocked. It's not technically overclocked, but it basically sustains the boost speeds, for a longer period of time. So let me quit this. Oh, I cannot quit this in the meanwhile. So yeah, basically gives you more performance without actually overclocking. But of course, you need to have a proper cooler for this. So if you're using a boxed cooler, don't put it on the for example, water cooling or tower cooler setting, because it will throttle because of the temperature. But it will give you more performance if your cooler allows it. Yeah. This is something that you will also find on our 400 series. So for example, if you have B560 motherboard, you can also do this. Okay, almost done. Then I can quit this, yeah. Here you see the options. That's what I just showed you in the BIOS. Top option is the box cooler. So those are the default power limits. So 65 watts PL1, 134 watts PL2, and a current limit of 140 amps. And with a proper air cooler or proper liquid cooler, you can go way beyond this. And this is the first question that you will get when you enter the BIOS. So if you reset your BIOS, you will go into your BIOS, then it will already ask you this. So no hidden settings somewhere far in the menu. Just the first thing the BIOS will ask you. What kind of cooler are you using, and will base the power limits based on what you enter there. Yeah. But of course, if you're doing this, it will put more strain on your VRM. So that's why the VRM design is still important on a B series chipset, because even though you're not technically overclocking, you're still running your CPU on a higher frequency for a longer period of time, so it will draw more power. That's why also on B series chipset, we for example have the extended heatsink design, we have a strong VRM design to make sure that it can also sustain these power limits. The examples you see here, this is for example what you will find on our MEG B560 Tomahawk or a Torpedo or the Mortar that we're using right now. If you're using, for example, a motherboard like this, the H510 M Pro, this is one of our most entry-level models. You don't have any additional VRM cooling, so the power limits on this will not go as far as they will on, for example, the Tomahawk I have right here with huge VRM cooling and a way stronger VRM design. So the power limit options, they differ per model. Yeah. So if you go back to the slide, the numbers you see here is for example, I think this is with the Mortar motherboard that we're using right now. I know they're the same for example.
Yeah, it was the same.
Yeah, it's the same for example, Torpedo and Tomahawk. Yeah. But it will be a lot different on a more entry-level H510 motherboard, for example. Or
a few questions. Neo Damien is asking, you say we can't overclock with B560, but what if you use Intel Extreme tuning utility? No, because the chipset limits it. We just have some tricks, like Mike is now talking about, to sustain the boot speed longer.
So your average frequency will be higher. So usually your CPU would only boost for a short period of time, and basically with these power limits, you're extending that period. Yeah.
So it's overclocking, but it's not. I mean, you're not playing with multipliers or with well, indirect you are. It's complicated.
Yeah, basically what's quite in this slide, you can also see that with the box cooler, you see a difference in your PL1 and your PL2. Your PL1 is like your standard, basically your TDP of your CPU. Yeah. And with PL2, so that's the increased power limit that it uses, for example, to reach those boost frequencies. So for certain periods of time, it will draw more power to get that higher frequency. But after a certain period of time, it will clock back again. It will go back to power limit 1, and it will also decrease the frequency again. If you're looking at this example, like the tower air cooler or the water cooler, you see that if it goes back from power limit 2 to power limit 1, both are 255 watts. So it can still maintain that high frequency. So that's basically a trick to still get the higher performance without a K-SKU CPU.
Yeah. The release date of B560, the first reviews of B560, to be honest, I'm not sure. I believe you will first see Z590 reviews, probably, and the boards are already shipped to the media before Chinese New Year, so for sure they arrived. And I'm not sure about media, if they will wait for 11th gen or they will first do a CPU round, a motherboard roundup or a motherboard review. But I would say in the coming days, weeks, you can expect reviews. Let's say coming weeks. Days is really short. I saw, yeah, and let me see. Yeah, Mike, you continue. Too many questions need to
Yeah. Another important thing for cooling is not just the heat sink, but not many people notice, but the PCB also dissipates heat from the VRM design. Of course, all those components, they are soldered on the PCB. And by using more copper in that PCB, so in this situation, on most of these models, we're using 2-ounce copper. So all gaming models, for example, have 2-ounce copper PCB. And that will help to dissipate the heat from the VRM components, so your MOSFETs, to your PCB as well. So they're not only cooled from the top, but also on the PCB. So by using this, your VRM temperatures get lower, so you're able to also boost for a sustained period of time. And this is something all the gaming models have, and also most of our Pro models have, the 2-ounce thickened copper PCB.
Yeah, so there is a discussion going on. I mean, is this overclocking or not? And then somebody is saying on Twitch, SavvyTech is saying, yeah, you can do this as long as until Intel blocks it. And that's correct. I mean, motherboard vendors like MSI in the past, we came up with a lot of tricks to do things which are not allowed. No, I shouldn't say that. Which are officially not allowed. Not
Usually we're trying to find tricks to make a CPU faster.
Yes, indeed. And sometimes Intel or AMD for that matter, they will say, sorry, you cannot do this. We will remove the option. We will actively block it. One of the things, Mike, do you remember, was PCI-Express Gen 4?
On 400 series.
Yeah. PCI-Express Gen 4 on AMD was also working on 400 series. It depended a lot on a lot of factors if it was working stable.
Yeah, it was not properly tested. Also, the 400 series used a different type of PCB than the Gen 4. Yeah. Gen 4 designed motherboards.
And then AMD said, okay, let's block it because we cannot guarantee, which is true, stability and safety of it. So yeah, this will happen. This can happen, and also with this feature. So I think this one will survive longer because we don't say we overclock the CPU, but we say we improve the cooling situation. And by that...
Also, the boost frequencies, they are still the frequencies defined by Intel.
Yes, we're not going on top of that.
No, the only thing we're changing is that you're running on your boost frequency for a longer period of time. So instead of automatically clocking back to your base frequency, your motherboard basically enables that your CPU can sustain the boost frequency. Yeah. And that will give you extra performance.
And this is the trick also with AMD CPUs or with NVIDIA GPUs and also the latest AMD GPUs. The boost mechanism in those CPU or GPUs, it's really smart, it's really fast, meaning it can get the maximum out of your silicon. But depending on the cooler. So cooling is very important. That's also why you see more systems sold with water cooling. Because the better the cooling, the more TDP or the more heat and the higher the clock frequency it can do. Or the longer boost it can sustain. I should say like that. That's, yeah.
Tech is asking, are we getting BIOS flash from the AO panel? I think you mean the flash BIOS button. No, we don't have that on our B and our H series. We do have that on, for example, our Z590 model. Let me quickly grab one.
Does MSI plan promotions like last gen, cashbacks, offer games included? Oh yes, for sure that will happen.
There we go.
And also in Poland or Europe. Sorry, Mike. This one. But currently nothing planned, and maybe even if it's planned, I wouldn't know about it because last week was Chinese New Year. Our colleagues in Taiwan are just today back, this morning. There's a 7-hour time gap. So we were talking about this live stream today to prepare everything. But yeah, normally these kind of actions are planned. But when? Don't know.
Yeah, coming back to the question, the flash BIOS button, you will not find it on the H or B series motherboards, but you will find it on the Z590. Another thing that we have on many of these models is 2.5 gigabit LAN and Intel Wi-Fi 6E. And if you have that Intel Wi-Fi 6E module, you automatically get Bluetooth 5.2 as well.
Sorry, Mike. Important question.
Oh.
From Tech. Can we change the generation PCI from Gen 4 to Gen 3? Some PCI, like M.2 Gen 4, supports PCI-express 3 and not Gen 4. Well, that's all backwards compatible. You don't have to worry about that. So it works.
I think in our BIOS you can actually force it as well.
And you can force it indeed.
Another reason to do so is in certain cases. For example, you see it a lot in small form factor cases, but also people who want to mount their GPU vertically. They use riser cables, and many still have a Gen 3 riser cable.
Yeah.
And by far not all of them properly work with Gen 4. So that's also, for example, a use case where you want to force Gen 3 through your PCI-express. And I think we can even independently set the PCI-express generation for example, your M.2 and your GPU.
Yeah.
So, for example, you can run your GPU in Gen 3 because it barely makes any difference and you're using a Gen 3 riser cable, but still get Gen 4 from your M.2 SSD.
Hacker VP, I thought he was going to do dinner. Anyway, he had a question for you. He has a question for you. His build plan?
Oh, I think, yeah, I would suggest, of course, to swap out that motherboard. I like the GPU. I have a very nice suggestion for power supply here for you. So our MPG.
It should look like this.
MPG series power supplies. We also have a nice 800. This is a 650 watt model, by the way.
You sound like a sales guy, Mike.
A850GF. And talking about all-in-one liquid cooler, right now we have the MEG Core Liquid 240R and 360R. But if you're slightly patient, then there might be something cool coming up. I won't give you too much details right now, but you will see this in future.
You have too much new stuff behind your desk.
Yeah, but it's a really cool model, I think.
This is like more like a warehouse.
Yeah, right now with all the boxes, it looks like a warehouse.
I have here some new monitors, 2 boxes. I came in and said, oh, what is this? Yeah, 2 new monitors from JA. Shall we show it? No, then we maybe NDA and we piss.
And we have our Christmas decorations box, so that's why we also still on Twitch have our Merry Christmas notification. Maybe you can grab a Santa hat, Eric.
No. I played enough Santa with Christmas.
And during this live stream as well with quite many keys. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to connectivity, because 2.5 gigabit LAN and Intel Wi-Fi 6E, of course, depends per model. Not every model has 2.5 gigabit LAN. Some more entry-level models, like for example the H510 models, will have often have Intel 1 gigabit LAN, and not all models, of course, have Wi-Fi. But for example, the gaming models that have Wi-Fi, so the MEG and the MPG series models, they all have Wi-Fi 6E, so the ones that have Wi-Fi. And the E brings you the 6 gigahertz frequency as well. So regular Wi-Fi 6 will support 5 gigahertz frequency, but not 6 gigahertz. And Wi-Fi 6E supports both 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz. And of course, you also have the support for 2.4.
Binot OP is asking, will the warranty be voided of the CPU because of this kind of overclocking? No.
I don't believe so. No.
First of all, we you know, the voltage, etc. We don't go extreme with those kind of things, so it's just no.
It's best to check.
It will not damage the CPU.
Yeah, best to check with Intel, of course, but I don't think it does.
It will not damage the CPU.
No. If you use proper cooling, of course, but otherwise it will also throttle.
Yes, it's based on the mechanism, and there are a lot of OP protections for over currents and you name it.
Yeah.
But yes, check with Intel, please.
So
it's not our product.
Wi-Fi 6 has one major benefit for gamers, in my opinion, and that's that the latency. Not only the transfer speed is a lot higher, but the latency is a lot lower compared to, for example, Wi-Fi 5. Which was previously known as Wi-Fi AC, and Wi-Fi 6 was previously known as Wi-Fi AX. But the lower latency basically gives you, it kind of feels like you're playing on a cable connection. Also, your ping will be lower in most games. So I think that's Of course, the higher transfer speeds are nice, but I think the latency is for gamers a very interesting feature. So if you, for some reason, need to game wirelessly or want to game wirelessly, then I would definitely suggest going with Wi-Fi 6 or even Wi-Fi 6E over Wi-Fi 5. Then USB, and this is a complicated story.
Actually, this slide makes it more easier. Yeah. We already talked about it, USB 3.2, Gen 2, X2. Anyway, we try, and this still needs some work on our website, but we try to talk more in the actual speed, so super speed USB 20 gig or 10 gig, because that's much more clear for everybody.
Yeah, some of the names, they changed like 3 times. So first we had USB 3.0, then it became USB 3.1 Gen 1.
No, just USB 3.1.
No, because at 3.1 you also had a Gen 2, 10 gigabits per second.
Anyway, I forgot.
So it became 3.1 Gen 1, but it was the same as 3.0, still 5 gigabits per second. And nowadays, the exact same thing, super speed USB 5 gigabits per second, it's called USB 3.2 Gen 1. So it's extremely complicated.
So with the launch of the 11 Gen CPUs, we will also have somebody from Intel here. Well, not here in the studio, but via Skype he will join. So he will also explain, he will also talk about Thunderbolt, USB 4, about that story. The new 11 Gen, no it's not, it's CPU, it's chipset dependent. The new 500 series also offer in Z590 and B560 also offer USB 20 gig from the PCH. So yeah, and I didn't see a lot of 20 gig devices on the market. There are some. Did you see already a lot, Mike?
No, not that many.
Yeah, but this will come, you know, this is a matter of time.
There are some docking stations, for example, that can benefit. External SSDs that use NVMe SSDs in there, so PCI-express based SSDs. Those can benefit from it. But for example, if you use a SATA SSD, then you're limited by the SATA interface rather than the USB interface. I see a really good question from J340.
I was eyeing it. It's a question we cannot answer. Will USB replace Thunderbolt?
Well,
no.
No. The easy answer is no.
Yeah, but and I want to say the complicated answer, the real answer, you have to wait until Intel joins, because they probably can explain it much better than us.
I can give an easy explanation with some of it. Thunderbolt has got more requirements that it needs to get certain standards to be able to call it Thunderbolt. For example, the charging capabilities for an external device are different on USB 4 and Thunderbolt. Something that USB does do right now is carry a display signal, which you can also see in this overview. So for example, if you're wondering what the difference between super speed USB 20G is compared to USB 4 20G, is that for USB 4 you need to carry the DisplayPort signal, and for super speed USB 20G, so 3.2 Gen 2 times 2, you don't need to carry that signal.
It's a bit more complicated because it's a simplified version. There are a lot of other small things, but yes.
Thunderbolt is a superset, so it needs to be able to do more to be able to carry the Thunderbolt 4 naming when comparing it to USB 4. But like Eric already mentioned, a more detailed explanation you will get later on when we will have a guest from Intel. We
will also try to get some USB 4 devices if they're already there. I already emailed some vendors.
So yeah, as soon as the devices are there, we will definitely talk about it, demonstrate stuff, etc.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that you can see in this overview is that for super speed USB 20G, you cannot do that over Type A. So if you see a motherboard that only has Type A, no Type C, then you know for sure that it doesn't have super speed USB 20G. Yeah. If it has Type C, that does not automatically mean that it is super speed USB 20G, because Type C you can also have for the older standards. But the latest standards, so 20G, but also the upcoming USB 4, then you will always have a Type C connector. On our all our B560 model, or all our Z590 models, and certain B560 models have Lightning USB 20G. So for example, Tomahawk, Torpedo, and Mortar all offer that USB 20G capability. So you can actually very easily spot that one on the I/O, because there is one Type-C port. And
the pink one?
the pink one? I don't think you can fit it in there. But it's a red one actually. It's just a webcam that makes it
the webcam.
weird.
It's strange.
Yeah, it's a red connector. But of course the Type-C is the 20 gigabit per second connector.
Yeah.
The blue ones that you see right here are 10 gigabit
really
per
pink.
second, and these are USB 2.0s. So for example, if you want to connect your mouse, keyboard, etc., you don't need additional speed, just connect them to the 2.0 connectors and you're good to go. The front Type-C on all Z590 models, but also the B560 gaming models, is super speed USB 10 gigabit per second, so previously known as USB 3.2 Gen 2. And let me quickly grab one of those boards to show you the front Type-C header right there.
Yeah, and next to it is the...
That's the regular USB header, so this is 5 gigabit per second header.
Type A?
Type A, yeah.
Most of the times, yeah.
Yeah, in some situations you can see that this is also used for the Type-C connector on some older cases.
Yes.
But then it will still only work in 5 gigabit per second. And this one supports 10 gigabit per second. Of course your case needs to support it as well. But most cases nowadays offer both a couple of Type A ports using this connector, and if it has a Type-C port, it uses that connector. On all our motherboards, we have PCI-express steel armor, so that's in the PCI-express slot. You see it has metal reinforcement to make sure it can handle even the largest and heaviest graphics cards. Also, the soldering points on the back are enforced, might be a little bit hard to see, but also to make sure that your slot is soldered extremely strong on your motherboard.
Because VGA cards are getting heavy.
Yeah, they're getting heavy, and also if you, for example, well, right now with the COVID situation, there might not be that many LAN parties. But if you like to go to LAN parties or take your PC to a friend or something, and you're transporting it, then of course
that's all not allowed.
Not right now, but it will.
Not here. Not here.
Yeah, I think I think right now in most countries, LAN parties are not possible.
No.
Yeah, in the future, of course, it will be possible again. So if you want to drag your PC around and you want to make sure if you have a heavy graphics card, you don't want to break it when you're riding over a bump, then steel armor is a really nice feature to have. Also, double ESD protection. ESD stands for electrostatic discharge. So, for example, if you have an electrical shock, actually it's already more than a year ago when we were in our headquarters, before Corona, we did a live stream from Taiwan.
December 2019.
Yeah, December 2019. You can actually still find it on our YouTube playlist. Go to MSI Insider and scroll back to December 2019.
That was a nice one.
Yeah, it was nice. And we actually, in our headquarters, we have a dedicated testing room for electrostatic discharge. So basically, you're shocking the system on purpose and see if it affects the system or not.
See if people around die.
Yeah, indeed. So basically you're torturing the hardware with shocks, and it should survive those tests, and if it doesn't, then we don't sell the hardware. It's as easy as that.
Yeah.
So all of the hardware had this shock torture test, yeah, so to say. But it's nice to see how the hardware gets tested if you're not familiar with ESD protection.
I will try to find a link. Well, I'll try. I mean, I'm just going to find
Eric will search for a link. Another thing we have, of course, on many of our models, for example, Torpedo, Tomahawk, Mortar, they all have the pre-installed I/O shield. I'm very bad with I/O shields if they're separate in the box. I've lost many in the past, so I had a motherboard without an I/O shield.
You're like Ja with screws.
Yeah, I had that with I/O shields, but especially because in the past I used to do some overclocking, playing around with hardware, etc. So I often just had motherboards laying around. So at that point you don't use your I/O shield because you just have it on a test bench or something. And then you want to use it again and you cannot find your I/O shield anymore. It's also very convenient when you want to install it in your case. You don't have to put in the I/O shield first, you can just put in your motherboard at once. Did you find it?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. Not sure if all chats will post it. It looks like it's posted. Anyway, so everybody now is gone. Everybody's going to watch that movie. Well,
just save the link and
we're almost finished.
Yeah. Depending on the model, you can find certain other features. For example, the extra large clip on the pci-express slot. Eric, you're still awake?
Well, I was reading something interesting about Corona, COVID-19 and pandemic.
You're just reading the news.
You're doing it wrong. So detailed cam, yeah.
So you have an extra large clip, so especially if your motherboard is in a case with the graphics card installed, it's sometimes a little bit hard to reach the clip to unlock your graphics card. This one is a little bit larger, so you can reach it more easily. Don't be like Eric, don't push this with a screwdriver. Use your finger.
Scratch your PCB too deep.
And Eric basically just stabs motherboards with it because then he misses it slightly and then he smacks it into PCB. Yeah. Not recommended. Don't use screwdrivers for it.
Happened before.
Something else, the clear CMOS button or the clear CMOS that you will find on the motherboard. On our Z590 series, some of the higher end motherboards also have a dedicated button for clear CMOS on the I/O panel. That's not something you will find on our B or H series, but you will find it on the higher end Z590 models. Easy LED control, that's a little switch. On the motherboard, let me show you up close.
That's the cue for Eric. Like,
that's the cue for Eric.
Click on the button.
Yeah, wake up. That's the wake up cue.
We should have like a button system that you can push on things.
Yeah, I need a Stream Deck or something. Let me see, there is a small switch. And if you're not into RGB, you can just flip the switch. You don't have to go into the BIOS, you don't have to go into any software, and the RGB lighting on the motherboard will be disabled. Easy debug LEDs. Yeah, it's a little bit
small.
Eric?
Yeah, very small.
Right there are some LEDs. It, for example, shows
memory, CPU,
yeah,
GPU.
memory, CPU, VGA. So you know where the issue is if your PC doesn't boot, for example. So you can easily find the cause of the problem you're having. Atypical PCB design is the cutout that you will find right here, and that allows for easy cable management, for example, for your SATA cables. So you see that here the PCB has a cutout in it. Then the keep out zone is on the back of the motherboard. Right here you see those points. If you're using different sized motherboards, you usually have the standoffs in your case in different places. But for example, if you install them in the wrong place, they might be underneath these points. That's why they're at those certain locations. And to avoid any issues that you might short circuit anything, there are no components at these specific areas. So also if you go to the front of the motherboards, for example here, you see it on the side. So this is, if you turn it around, that's next to the BIOS battery, and you see there's nothing there. So you don't get short circuit because, for example, you forgot to remove any standoffs from a different size motherboard.
Mike, I think we need to hurry because otherwise security will come and kick us out.
Oh, they will kick us out. M.2 Shield Frozr.
Oh, one moment, I'm here.
Right there on the M.2 slot. It differs per model, how many you have. For example, Tomahawk offers 2, Torpedo offers 1. Here's also the Bazooka also has 1.
Unifi will offer 4.
Unifi will offer 4. Yeah, I think all MEG ATX models have 4 on all slots.
Yeah, depends on the models.
Yeah, and it does not only protect your SSD, but also cools it. And this is to prevent potential thermal throttling. So especially if you have a high performance,
I would
for
not
example,
say prevent, I would say delay.
Well, in some situations, prevent.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, in the end, what happens?
Yeah, it depends, of course, on your SSD,
Yes.
but I have never seen SSD throttling with M.2 Shield Frozr, whereas I have without.
Yes, for sure.
And yeah, you can see in the graph on the slide, you can see what basically happens with your performance if you
Need to yes.
There we go. On the left, if it's properly cooled, you can see that it sustains the high performance. On the right, you can see where the SSD starts to throttle because of temperature, and then it will automatically decrease the performance in order for the SSD not to overheat. And especially high performance Gen 4 SSDs, they can get quite hot nowadays. So if you want to run one of those SSDs, then it's really interesting to use some SSD cooling. Some SSDs already come with SSD cooling, others don't. And sometimes they come with SSD cooling, but it doesn't fit the aesthetics of the motherboard.
Mike, a lot of questions.
So then you just can use your M.2 Shield Frozr.
So Andre is back already some time. This is a pizza guy. Mango is asking, can I have a PC or laptop? No. Will Intel, so Binop OP, will Intel offer cryo cooling with 11900, which will reach probably 6 or 5.9? We don't know. We are not allowed to talk about it. And I think they will, I'm not sure, but I don't think they will offer cryo cooling.
I don't know, but I don't expect them to do so out of the box.
Indeed. Let me see. Does Dusan is asking, does every line, so every mainboard line like MPG, MEG, come with stickers for the battery and the heatsink?
No. You will get that on the gaming models, but not on, for example, the Pro Series motherboards. So this is, if you, for example, go for an MEG model, then you will get these kind of stickers for your heatsink and your. Can we show it up close?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, the chat is so active today.
So this is, for example, the set of stickers that comes with the MEG motherboards, but Pro Series don't come with additional stickers.
Yeah. 11 Gen, when will it be released? Sorry,
Can I talk about it?
Not allowed to talk about it. This year. Oh, am I not allowed to say that? Mike.
Sorry?
I said this year.
Technically, you're not allowed to say so.
Okay. Sorry, cannot talk about it.
Yeah, so Lightning Gen 4 support on our motherboards, and this is quite an interesting one because you don't have Gen 4 on all slots. So let's take the Tomahawk as an example. As the sticker already mentioned, you need an 11th Gen Intel Core processor in order to use pci-express Gen 4 in this slot. These slots, even if you use an 11th Gen CPU, will still be Gen 3. So those will get the lanes out of the chipset, and those will be Gen 3. This one will get the lanes directly from the 11th Gen CPU, and those will be Gen 4, like your x16 PCI-Express slot. These PCI-Express slots also will be Gen 3.
Boom, 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 boom. More questions.
The exception, if you want to run more Gen 4 SSDs with an 11th Gen Intel Core processor, is Unifi, where you can actually take lanes from your GPU. So your GPU will then run with 8 PCI-Express Gen 4 lanes. So you have 12 PCI-Express Gen 4 lanes left for SSDs. So you can run 3 Gen 4 SSDs at full speed. And because 8 Gen 4 lanes offer the same bandwidth as 16 Gen 3 lanes, you barely lose any performance on your GPU, even if you're using, for example, a 3090 or a 6900 XT from AMD. They barely suffer when using PCI-Express Gen 4 at 8 lanes.
Final Odyssey already got its answer. Not sure if it's true, but it's about DDR5 again. People are always asking about the stuff for like
For the
far
future,
away.
yeah. At some point, yes, there will be DDR5. And of course, at some point, we will also have PCI-Express Gen 5.
Yes.
Then let's take a look at our software package. We already touched on this a little bit. Most of you might be familiar with our Dragon Center software or our Creator software, or Creator Center. We're now working on MSI Center, where we want to incorporate this in one package, basically.
You're also working on that, right?
Yes. I'm regularly talking to our colleagues in our Taiwanese headquarters to of course make the software as good as possible. Our current software is not perfect, of course, so we're really trying to improve this further in MSI Center. Of course, this takes time. At first launch, not everything will be perfect, but it's a modular system basically, so you can install and uninstall whatever you want. And we're improving those module by module. And MSI Center is, for example, where you will be able to control your Mystic Light. You will have your LAN manager, so you can prioritize certain applications. You can also do some overclocking, of course, if your motherboard supports it. You have live update for automatic updates, hardware monitor, dual display with, for example, an iPad or something. And all these boards also come with the ClickBIOS 5 that most of you will, if you have a more recent MSI motherboard, will be familiar with. One feature I'd like to highlight is the Frozr AI cooling. This is a really cool feature that will be included in our MSI Center, and this will use the readouts from your CPU and your GPU temperature to adjust the case fan speed. So based on certain curves that you can set, the fan speed will increase or decrease based on what you're doing on your PC, basically. So you already know this from, for example, your CPU fan will of course spin up if it's under load, or your GPU fan will spin up if it's under load, or sometimes even stop its fans if it's really under idle. But here you can really set a custom curve. So for example, if your GPU reaches that temperature, I want my fans to spin at a certain speed. And you can also do that for your CPU. So you can really define it by yourself. In this manual mode example on the right, you for example see the blue line is the GPU, and it uses a different curve than the CPU. And you can define that completely yourself. If you don't want to do that all manually, you can of course also choose for performance mode, which will give you very good cooling performance, but will produce some noise. Or you
maybe
can choose
we need
for
to invite Ruud or Peter to do some live demos about this.
Indeed, in a later stage, when we will also demonstrate MSI Center, we will for sure go deeper into this.
Yeah.
Any other topics from your side, Eric, before security kicks us out?
Yeah,
any questions in chat?
Chat is talking about AGMI, all products for the future. So no comment, guys. No comment. Let's talk about next week.
Yeah, interesting topic. I think many of you are waiting for this.
Yes, another VGA card which is not available, or cannot not make those jokes, or which is too high priced. No. So next week, 3060 Gaming X Trio. We're going to talk about the whole 3060 lineup, and we're going to benchmark it. So NVIDIA lifts the NDA. So important next week. Yeah,
very important.
Not on Wednesday, like you used from us, but on Thursday, one day later. 1600 CET, so Central European time.
So same time as this live stream, but not on Wednesday, but on Thursday.
Yeah, indeed. So Peter is going to do this live stream, and he's going to benchmark the out of it. Anyway, and of course we hope to see you all back. Andre, you as well. I saw he was saying I'm here the whole live stream already. Thank you for joining us.
So Eric, shall we do one more winner?
That's what my finger was saying. One more winner.
Oh, I thought you wanted to correct me, but
yes. No. I wouldn't dare. Actually, I do it all the time.
So our last winner for today. So yes. I hope you all participated in the giveaway. If not, now you're too late.
Yeah, now you're too late. Yeah.
Congratulations, Ahmed Mohammed Abdo. Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations.
You also won a game code for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Keep an eye out on your mailbox, also to the other winners. We will send an email to you in the coming days with the game code and some instructions on
you
how
will
to
do
claim
that,
it.
or is my work?
To send it out.
Yeah.
Probably mine.
So it will happen next week.
No, I'm faster with this than you are.
Is it?
Yeah. I usually send out on Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
I sometimes see you do it on Monday
Yeah,
or Tuesday.
sometimes on Monday.
Yeah.
That's still on my to-do list.
So
Yeah.
you're blaming me for your shortcomings here. Yeah, I see what's happening.
Thank you all.
That's a good time to end it.
Yeah.
Hope to see you all
Bye-bye.
again next week on Thursday instead of Wednesday. Then Peter will show you all about the new GeForce RTX 3060 series. And goodbye.
Bye-bye.